Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. Your Utah Jazz back in action and blown out in Houston, 125-105. I know a 20-point loss doesn't sound terrible because, you've seen a bunch of 30 and 40-point losses this year. But they were down 21 at the half. Honestly, I thought the game was blown wide open late in the first quarter. So it was Peacock only. If you don't have Peacock, if you don't have access to that, those of you who have cable, it's up there in the 1,000 somewhere. There's some channel where the Peacock streaming games get put. So I watched it. It was bizarre to watch some national broadcast where I don't know anybody. and the Jazz just get blown out early. For the life of me, I can't figure out why Peacock wanted that game. But, hey, there you go. They got it. So the Jazz go down to defeat. They get a loss they needed, a loss we expected. It really shows the gap. You can go from the bottom to the middle pretty quickly. I think the Jazz have built a roster that is already ready to do that next year. It's obvious to me that they can get to the middle of the league. But when you want to get to the top of the league, suddenly some big jumps that need to be accomplished. And I don't think Houston is the top tier of the league. I was talking about it yesterday. I think they're the second tier of the league, and it shows how much has to be done. And I think there will be more moves this summer. Jusuf Nurkic's season is done. He's having surgery for a deviated septum. He's been hitting the nose, and so he's going to get that taken care of, and then he's going to hit free agency, and I expect he'll be too expensive for the Jazz to bring back. So they'll need to find a backup center, assuming they sign Walker Kessler, which right now I think is more likely than not. I expect he'll be back. Obviously, it's not a done deal or guarantee. They've got Jackson and Markkanen, but they're going to have to bring someone in to backup Markkanen in the 3, especially if Markkanen's going to take the minutes at the 4 when Jackson sits, which is what I would expect they would do. So they need to find a starting caliber guard, a veteran, I think, with some playoff experience. If they want to win in the playoffs, they're going to need to add some playoff experience to this team. So someone who can, start the offense, play the guard spot, someone who can swing between the 2 and the 3. I think they need a couple veterans there. I don't know what that's going to mean for Sensabaugh. I could see Collier on the roster as the 4th guard, but they're going to have to find a way to put playoff experience on there. They got a short window here. They got 3 years, really, with everybody signed, and then, we'll see what happens. You're not team building for long windows here. I mean, maybe they could bring a bunch of the guys back, but at the same time, maybe they don't. It's just hard to know. So I think they're really going to have to accelerate this thing. And you could see against Houston, they were just, outmatched, and they can't expect these young guys to do a lot. I think Bailey of the young guys is the one who clearly is going to stay in the rotation. I expect Kessler too, but they're going to need some veterans. Obviously, Jackson has playoff experience, and Markkanen does not, but is still going to be expected to play at a high level. All right, DJ and PK. There's the Jazz basketball. They come home now and host the Pelicans twice in the next 2 games, 2 very winnable games, and I expect they'll win one of them. But they better not win both of them. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if there's a reason to take Markkanen out of the lineup and see how that shakes out. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Let's take a break right now. Coming up, we got plenty to get to. We got Sam Farnsworth wrapping up the Olympics. Mike Folta talking hockey as well. Kevin Young getting you ready for the next BYU basketball game as BYU hosts a UCF team that is on the bubble, but right now looks like they're on the right side of the bubble and in the NCAA tournament. Both teams are 8-6 and tied in the conference standings. We'll get to all of that coming up. Stay with us. DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Sam Farnsworth from KSL Sports is flying back to Utah today. Sam was there for the Olympic Games. We talked to him yesterday after he witnessed the thrilling gold medal victory for the United States over Canada. Here is Sam Farnsworth joining us from Italy on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Let's get to your comments on the gold medal hockey game. Were you in the rafters? Yeah. Were you right on the ice? Were you in the media room because there were no seats in the arena? What did they do with people?
Right. So it's they call that a high demand event for the media, right?
You think.
Yeah, so you had to put your name in and like apply for a spot with the media even in advance. So your regular Olympic credential wasn't going to get you in.
Sure.
Luckily, I was one of 4 from our little NBC group out here that was selected to be able to go in. So we go in, we were greeted outside with someone who allows us to get in with the proper, entrance ticket, whatever you want to call it. And then we go to our regular, kind of the regular media seating area, which normally is kind of a first come, first serve. And we go sat down there for about 20 minutes before they came and kicked us out, because those seats you had to apply ahead in advance for a seat there as well for the media. So we ended up, long story short, this is actually the great thing, is we ended up in a standing room only spot right by where the broadcast, like the in-between period broadcasters, those guys, right? We were standing right next to those guys, just with a great view behind the net where they scored the game-winning goal. So we stood there for the whole game, and it was worth every minute on my tired feet by the end of the day. It was so good.
Nice. Did you get a chance to talk to the Utah Mammoth representative on Team USA, Clayton Keller, who's getting a gold medal? Well, has now received a gold medal.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, he was all smiles afterwards. He was really happy. And you can, I'm not a body language expert or anything, but I feel like you could kind of tell that he was a little disappointed with the way his playing time went in these Olympic Games. He was a healthy scratch those first two games. He finally got in on the third game with the third line. He played about the expected amount of minutes for someone in that position. The fourth game, he came in that same role, but after the first period, they benched him. Yeah. And I talked to him after that game, and you could tell just kind of based on body language that maybe he was a little disappointed that he didn't get to continue playing and that he was kind of replaced in a sense. Well, the semifinal and final game, he was that extra skater, so he was suited up. He did hit the ice for brief minutes, but when I talked to him after the gold medal yesterday, he definitely was all smiles and just he had a great experience. He talked about how his teammates out here, that they'll be pretty much linked and bonded together forever, that their experiences off the ice were just unlike any other he's had with any other team, where just the amount of time they spent together at the Olympic Village. Some of the guys said they took full advantage of the dorm life there, right? And they just really got to know each other and enjoyed spending time with each other. So even though his role was limited, and even some of his teammates, I talked to them about Clayton and his role with the team, and every single one of them just raved about him and just talked about how great of a teammate he is, how skilled and good of a hockey player he is. And it just kind of, from my perspective, leads me to believe that the Mammoth are really lucky to have such a great leader and captain that they have in Clayton Keller.
Were you around the Canadians at all? The disappointment versus the jubilation you obviously saw with the United States, or maybe they're far enough apart and you're trying to get Clayton?
No, they walk through the same area that we walk through.
Yeah.
Yep, same mix zone. So those players, when they came through, clear disappointment on their face. I mean, I don't think it was any more clear on anyone else's face than Nathan MacKinnon's. He felt terrible for. I think he put on his shoulders a little bit of the blame for the loss. Giving up the puck there near the end, and and then inside the arena, it was. We're trying to figure out, okay, what's the divide here between Canada and United States fans, and there's probably a good 75 to 25%, in favor of Canada. And so when that goal was scored, it was like how you would imagine it on any road game where the visiting team wins, just the energy sucked right out of the building. And then you hear the cheers and jubilation of the United States team and of the American fans that were there. But it was like the immediate reaction was just like just everything sucked right out of that building. And it's because they did not expect it. There's no way. You go into a 3-on-3 overtime, and the three guys you start with out on the ice are Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid, and Cale Makar. I mean, come on, those are probably three of the top 5 players in the world right now in the sport of hockey, and they didn't get the job done. The Americans got it done, and they scored that game-winning goal, and you could just the energy, the excitement, every face I saw that was a Canadian fan walking out, every face I saw from the players, and we even walked past the team management, the team bosses, right, in the concourse, and they were just furious. So there was just a lot of disappointment on their end, of course, but just sheer jubilation, shock to an extent, elation for the United States side.
Mammoth had 3 other players there, and they had obviously a wide range of experience and ice time, from none at all to goal, assist, and all of that. Those 3 guys, I don't know how much you got to interact with any of them. Who'd you get to interact with, and what was their takeaway?
Yeah, I was able to interact briefly with all of them. Ole Mata was outstanding after winning the bronze medal. I talked to him right after they won their bronze medal game, and I just asked him, what does he take from that? There's only 2 teams that get to end the Olympics with a win, and they're one of them. And he's like, yeah, we were disappointed to lose in that semifinal game. We thought we were a better team. We thought we were coming to compete and win a gold medal. Finland always has high expectations because they are super talented and very good. But he did say that winning the bronze kind of made it feel like, that consolation, not really a consolation, but it kind of made him feel like, that they are leaving a champion in a sense, right? Winning that bronze medal because they did end on a winning note. And he said he was really proud of that moment. JJ Peterka, when I spoke, the last time I spoke to him was after they were eliminated, and he was disappointed, clearly disappointed. The German team was talented. They're not as good as, Finland, Sweden, United States, or Canada, but they did have some very talented players on their roster, led by Leon Draisaitl, and he was disappointed. I think if, I catch up with him next week sometime at Mammoth practice, he'll probably have had time to let it soak in a little more and understand just how great it was for him to be at the Olympics. And then, Karel Vejmelka, who never ended up playing, I asked multiple people in the Czech media, kind of why doesn't he play? And they just clearly said, well, it's because he's our number 3. He's definitely our number 3 goalie. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that answers that. He's the winningest goalie in the NHL right now, but number 3 for his country. So, but I saw him post on social media just, I think it was yesterday, a post of him with his team there at the Olympics, and he just kind of briefly mentioned how proud he was to be an Olympian. And so all 4 of them, they should all be very proud that they were able to be here and represent their teams the first time since, 12 years that NHL players have been able to be in the Olympic Games. So it's quite an honor for all of them.
Now that the games are over, your takeaway, I don't know, did you do the closing ceremonies thing or you were so wrapped up with the hockey you didn't have time?
Yeah, they put those pretty close together. I mean, I had just finished kind of wrapping up all of my post-game stuff and starting to send video back when closing ceremonies began. And also closing ceremonies was a few hours away. They used like an old ancient stadium for it. I saw pictures of it, but I didn't see any of it. I heard it was interesting, but again, I wasn't able to watch any of it. I was pretty consumed with hockey yesterday, which I'll tell you what, it was worth my attention. Though.
Right.
That was one of the most, I don't know how to describe it.
Electric?
Yeah, I mean, and there's going to be some recency bias. Maybe I got to sit down and think about some of the cool things I've done over the years with my career, but at the same time, that's got to be a top 5er right now, maybe even top 3 of things I've ever done in my career is being able to watch that game and cover that game.
What was the other give us one other big moment from the games that's going to stand out for you sometime in these 17 days? Well, you've been there more than that, but 17 days of competition.
Right. Yeah, 100% right away, I think of Jalen Kopp. She's a mogul skier who, lives in Salt Lake City. She grew up in Wyoming, but she's lived in Salt Lake City ever since she started to take her skiing seriously. And she won a silver medal in the moguls up in Livigno, and she won the silver medal in that same event in Beijing, but didn't have her family there. And so for me, what really is just kind of burned into my memory that I'll never forget is the moment that after she won her medal, she was able to run over. They have a waiting area for family to come over, and her family and her boyfriend and her close friends were all there waiting for her, and she ran over. There's just tears and joy and celebration between them to be able to share that moment that they weren't able to share 4 years ago. For me, as a witness to it, a spectator to it, in a sense, that was a pretty special moment that I won't forget.
How easy is it to get back, or are the flights just jammed now with people coming back? You got to hang out a day?
Yeah, I mean, I leave tomorrow morning, and so far all of my schedule is fine. So they have all these NBC employees, they have about half of us going through Atlanta and the other half going through New York.
Okay.
And that includes our 2 that are in Cortina. And all the people going through New York, their flights for tomorrow have already been canceled for at least one day because apparently the East Coast is being hammered with snow.
Yep.
Or is going to be hammered with snow. So
it is being hammered.
Yeah. So they're not getting out on schedule. For me, I'm on schedule though. So thank goodness. I've enjoyed my time here, but I'll definitely enjoy getting back home.
I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't that dialed in, but on social media this morning, I saw one of the people I follow who's a New York-based sports media member was complaining about local news. You will love this. First time he says, I am weirdly obsessed with local news during storms. He says, they're listing one at a time everything that is closed. He says, why don't they just say, everything is closed? I'm like, because if you know that, then you'll turn off the TV. So they're stringing you along. I mean, you and I have watched enough weather coverage waiting to get on TV like, oh, cut to the chase already.
Exactly.
But it's the industry. I don't even know what station he's watching. I mean, I assume he's watching one of the New York stations because he's New York-based, but he could be in Boston covering some game and it'd be the same in Boston.
That reminds me, when I lived in Colorado, whenever there was a snowstorm, you wake up early in the morning, turn the news on because they'd scroll across the bottom or announce which school districts were closing or how on a delayed start. And it's like, okay, if this district is closed, these other 2 have to be closed because they're right next to it. Why don't they just say all of them are closed? So that's what it reminds me of.
Yep. Yeah. PK has those stories when he was a kid, listening to the radio to find out if his school was closed. When I worked in Sacramento, which is basically sea level, so it doesn't get snow, but the market goes all the way to the state line. So there are people watching you who get tons of snow because you're up in the Sierra Nevadas. And so,
by Reno, yeah.
Yeah, it was literally Reno has their own TV. It divides right on the state line. So it was literally such a routine that they would drive to the exact same exit. They knew right where the snow level was going to be. And they'd go to the same exit, stand on the same overpass, and then just point in a slightly different direction.
Right, there you go. Just do your stand-up shots, right, and live reports from there.
So funny. Hilarious. All right, well, I'm glad you drew Atlanta instead of New York. That's a win.
No kidding, right? Well, so here's the catch, and not to eat up all your time on this, but the people going to New York are on the official NBC charter, and apparently they all had one row to themselves.
Really?
And they're all telling me this, and some of them are like, so now we have to share a row. I'm like, get over it.
Shut up.
I'm going to be on a full plane to Atlanta for 10 hours. Quiet.
You scrunched into a middle seat? I hope you draw better than that. And
I hope not.
And I hope you don't draw some 6'2" dude sitting next to you.
Exactly.
As we all know. You see 6'2", 270 guy coming down tonight. No. Yeah. Where's the 5'1", 108-pound grandma? Let's go.
Yeah. 100%. I'll keep my fingers crossed for all the good.
Yeah, as soon as I see some 6'6" dude get on the plane, I know he's sitting next to me. That's just how that works.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, Sam, safe travels on the way back. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you when you get home after you take a little time off, if Nate allows such things.
Yeah, I hope so. That's my plan. Thanks, DJ.
There's Sam Farnsworth. And a reminder, don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. This week, you can win tickets to see Stain and the Break the Cycle 25th Anniversary Tour featuring Seether with special guests Hoobastank and Hinder at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on October 7th. Tickets are on sale at livenation.com or listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. When we come back, Mike Folta talking Utah Mammoth hockey and Kevin Young looking forward to BYU and UCF at the Marriott Center. Stay with us right here on The Zone. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 KSL Sports Zone. Mike Folta joined me yesterday on the show. With the Olympics over, we talked a little Olympic hockey and look forward to the Utah Mammoth returning to action Wednesday night. They got Colorado, best team in the NHL. If they're at full strength, Mike gets into the possibility that they won't be. Here's Mike Folta with me on The Zone. The Olympics are over. The Mammoth getting ready to play. Mike joins us right now. Brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, DJ, or as we say here in America, gold morning.
Oh, nice.
Super exciting. You like that, huh?
I did. I like that a lot. That was good.
I wish I could take credit for it. That was my broadcast and podcast partner, Adrian Denny. I thought he made a spelling mistake when he texted that to me, but it plays after the U.S. wins gold, not just in women's hockey, but then in men's hockey early. Sunday morning. Hope everybody was watching like we were. Jack Hughes with the overtime winner. Did you get up at 6:10 Mountain Time to get that puck drop, DJ?
As a matter of fact, I did not. I get up 5 mornings a week, and you don't get me up for anything. Don't hockey fans, don't take it personal. You know how often I get up for Wimbledon? Never. Do you know how often I get up for English Premier League soccer? Never. You get a game that starts at because the game starts at 9, 10, 11. Now I'm in. But a 6 a.m. start? No, thank you.
I can't shame you too much, and I'm not proud to admit this, but I recorded it and then slept until like 7.
Oh, yeah. And then you can
was
zoom.
able to fast forward through the intermission.
Exactly. You know, sorry, sponsors, but goodbye, commercial breaks. I have to do that sometimes. It's the only way to get through a Saturday when you have the Jazz playing, the Mammoth playing, and I feel like I got to watch, depending on what's going on, 2 or 3 college basketball games as well. You've got to compress them. Like, I'm running out of hours in the day here, and especially because they overlap. So it's the only way to do it.
I used to just rake people over the coals for watching games recorded, and now it's one of my favorite things. Now, with the gold medal game on Sunday, I did get to, I was watching the third period in overtime live. Okay. So everybody hold on to your horses. But one of my favorite things, DJ, like after a Mammoth game gets done at home, maybe it's 10:30, I get back to my apartment, got a couple college basketball games recorded, and boom, you can watch those things in like an hour when you fast forward through the free throws and the commercials.
But you took a little more than an hour to watch Purdue beat the snot out of Indiana Friday. Oh, thank you, sir. May I have another? Oh, holy cow. You guys, no mercy. It's a rivalry game. Why would there be mercy?
I was back in the Holy Land that week, and I was at Mackey Arena, which is where Purdue plays. Yeah. Great atmosphere, one of the best college basketball atmospheres. And I watched us get drummed by Michigan, who may very well be my championship pick come the tournament here in a little bit. But getting a win over the in-state rival was fantastic. Thinking about hitting up the Huntsman Center for a little Iowa State Utah on Tuesday after it was BYU that took down the Cyclones the other night. Good win for the Cougs.
Yep. All right, that's a lot of basketball from the hockey guy right there. Nice. I thought coming out of the Olympics, the lesson is they got to do 4 nations again. An all-star game has no oomph, but U.S.-Canada under any circumstance, in any situation, yes, please. Yeah, yes. Oh. So do you think the 4 nations will come back next year?
I believe we're in line to do some kind of all-star competition. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure. They have cycles of these international tournaments, not just the Olympics, but things like the 4 nations as well. But I mean, we knew that U.S.-Canada plays. Like, we knew that that's the number one hit. That's what people want to see. And it delivered on Sunday. It was exactly what we would hope it would be. It was incredible hockey between 2 teams. Connor Hellebuck, the goaltender for Team USA, played maybe the best game I've ever seen a goaltender play, or at least up there when you consider the competition. He made 41 saves. He made what you could make an argument is the best save of all time, or the greatest save of all time, considering the circumstance.
Did you
feel back with his goal stick and knocked the puck away from the net mouth on a Devon Taves shot? I mean, that could have been the game right there, and he saved the U.S.'s gold medal hopes. So Hellebuck was fantastic. The overtime was thrilling as well. You had the best players in the world on the ice, and then it was Jack Hughes in overtime, a guy who last year in the 4 nations, DJ, did not play all that well. Like, he was widely criticized for his play for Team USA at the 4 nations tournament last year. Well, what do you know? He has a fantastic Olympic tournament this season and is the overtime hero after taking a stick to the teeth. Did you see the pictures of Jack Hughes' teeth.
Great
they were
quotes.
not just knocked out; they were cut in half. He broke his teeth.
Yeah, great quotes from him about they called them chipped, and I thought, chip? Nah, it was a little more than the chip. But whatever. Hockey players, it's a flesh wound, It's just merely a flesh wound. But he said he looked down on the ice and picked him up like, dude, if it's a chip, you can't see your tooth on the ice if it's just a chip. That's a big chunk of tooth if you can see it. Yeah, that was I don't even know what that was. I'm out of words, and I'm rarely out of words. I'm curious, as we switch from the Olympics and all the passion around that to the Mammoth returning. Are they going to return fully healthy? What do you know about Cooley's status, if anything?
Yeah, we were expecting Cooley to be on the bench or on the ice when the Mammoth dropped the puck on Wednesday night against the Colorado Avalanche in a return to play. Two really big matchups for Utah coming out of the gates as we resume action. Colorado, best team in the league on Wednesday, and then the Minnesota Wild, another top 5 team in the league on Friday night. And we've been seeing Logan Cooley out there with with the full contact jersey, I should say, at practice. So he has not had any limitations in practice. And these are not just kind of, your normal regular season practices either, where you're kind of going through the motions, just trying to get a sweat in, get the legs moving, maybe tweaking some things on special teams. These are like training camp practices where guys are competing and there's a little bit more physicality throughout the day as we try and ramp up to game speed. But haven't seen an official word yet, but the belief is that Logan Cooley is going to be back. He's missed the last 28 games due to a lower body injury, and he's still one of the Mammoth leading scorers, despite the fact that he's missed a third of the season. Basically, he's Utah's most dynamic offensive player. He plays a key position, the center position, more responsibility, and he's just a joy to watch. So really excited to have him back into the fold. When he went down, I mean, DJ, we were thinking, gosh, that could be the season for the Mammoth right there. And what do you know? Utah has way more than a winning record, way more than a 500 record with him out of the lineup. So they do much better than even just treading water with him out. And they'll get him back. That's the expectation for these last 25 games. Also expected to get Alexander Kerfoot back here soon, if not right away, as we resume. He's a very versatile piece in the forward group for Utah, kills penalties, takes faceoffs. He's only played 9 games this year due to injury. He's had a couple of injuries. And so him getting a ton of practice time is going to be huge for the Mammoth.
4 Mammoth players at the Olympics, and I think there's always a question about fatigue and the emotional energy expended. But given how these teams performed and given each player's role within the team, I mean, Vejmelka didn't play, right? So he's got to deal with the jet lag, and maybe he needs to play a little bit and face some shots. I don't know, maybe there's a little rust there. How do you think these guys seg back into NHL play given their various experiences?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Karel Vejmelka is already over here practicing, so
the
Czechs
they've been knocked
got
out. Yeah,
and Karel was on the first flight over, and he's been getting used to being back stateside. It will be interesting for Clayton Keller, who didn't play a ton in that gold medal game for Team USA, but you could there were videos of Team USA calling President Donald Trump, and it sounded like he invited them to the White House. And from what we're hearing, it sounds like Team USA is going to be partying in Miami Monday night or tonight, I guess. And so they're doing a little celebration tour, and not sure how many of the American players are going to be good to go for Wednesday. We also heard from Colorado's head coach, Jared Bednar, that Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon, 2 guys who were on Team Canada, along with their Colorado teammate, Devon Taves. But those guys who were on Team Canada, he was saying they might not be ready to go for Wednesday. So not sure what that's going to look like for some of the Team USA and Team Canada players who went all the way to the final game and played a really draining game. Good news is for Utah that the Mammoth didn't have a ton of guys that went super deep and played a ton. Vejmelka didn't play at all for the Czechs, which was surprising for us. But the spin zone is that he's rested, and he's going to be leaned upon heavily in these last 25 games. JJ Peterka was good for Team Germany, but they got bounced early in the tournament, and so he's been over here in Utah and skating as well. Olli Mata won bronze for Finland. He's now a 2-time bronze medalist. He was over there a little bit later, but he's typically been Utah's 7th defenseman. So the Mammoth kind of feel pretty good about where their defense is at. So it's a case-by-case basis. Team USA still living it up and still partying. Not sure what their re-entry into the atmosphere is going to look like. But I think the health of guys coming out of that tournament is a real factor, or at least their game readiness after something that we've been looking forward to for years now. These Olympics, after that comes and goes. I mean, DJ, you can imagine it could be hard to settle back into the grind of an 82-game regular season in the National Hockey League.
The emotion is unreal. And for all the joy and ecstasy that the U.S. felt yesterday and all the dejection Canada felt, when the games were here in 2002, it was a U.S.-Canada final, and Canada won. And the pictures of Wayne Gretzky, I mean, euphoric. You would have thought he just won another Stanley Cup. I mean, it was, he was like, I mean, it looked like he'd been sweating. Now, at some point, he just got doused with champagne and probably beer and probably soda and probably water and probably lemonade. I mean, until the vending machine is empty, it's like, we got root beer, let's go. Whatever it takes. This is a wild celebration. And I do wonder, aside from the tired legs and the jet lag and all that, what that emotion does. And the Canadians are way down and the Americans are way up. And I saw it in 2002. It was exactly the opposite. And Vancouver in 2010, they had another showdown like this. So this is just one of the things, and it's kind of odd that it's midseason, but I really wouldn't want it to be any other way. It was the whole tournament was too much fun. The U.S. semifinal, that one got out of hand. But other than that, I mean, 3 of the quarters were in OT. It was just great hockey all along. So I hope that Four Nations format lives on and they keep it going. Not as many teams, not as much time, but nonetheless, pretty cool stuff.
Well, yeah, and the great thing was there were rivalries built into the Four Nations, right? I mean, Finland and Sweden don't like each other, and then we got 2 matchups of U.S., Canada. Whereas these Olympics were fantastic. I think the pool play was a little sleepy.
Yeah, it was.
The Americans had 3 pretty
easy wins,
for lack of a better word, easy wins.
Right.
Yeah. But the crescendo is what matters, and that's what people are going to remember. And it absolutely lived up to the hype and then some. I'm curious, like, as we were all consuming Team USA victory videos and content on social media, did you have a favorite like image or video? Because I've got a couple that were my favorite visuals from the celebration. In those moments, the one thing I like to play over and over, when something happens, right? And in that moment, the big home run, the big goal, the big catch, whatever it is, right? The big hoop, I love to look at the crowd, the people who are there in person, feeling the energy in the arena. And what happens to their bodies is they lose all control as adrenaline just like straight from your heart out into every fingertip. And I mean, Jordan hit the shot in Utah, and I literally know people who are sitting behind the basket and to watch their reaction. And that was a negative reaction. But nonetheless, to go up to somebody and say, hey, first off, nice seats. How'd you get there? And then second on, the look on your face. And they're like, I felt like I was dying. I shouldn't be that into a basketball game, but literally I felt like I couldn't breathe, And so for me, it was watching the people behind the goal. There were a lot of American fans. We had Sam Farnsworth on earlier. He thought it was 75% Canada, 25% U.S., right? But there were American fans. They were wearing the red, white, and blue, or they had the flag or whatever, and their expressions as they realized the winning goal was in, just epic. I can watch that stuff over and over. There were so many great moments. We do have to mention the Johnny Gaudreau element to it as well. And if you're not aware, Johnny Gaudreau, an American hockey player, was him and his brother were killed by a drunk driver in 2024, right before last season. And he's a guy who a lot of these guys on Team USA grew up playing with, or even were teammates in the NHL. But a lot of them played together, at the academy or through college or what have you. So they all know of each other. And he was a big part of USA Hockey, had represented the America before internationally. And After his passing, they made sure at Four Nations last year and then the Olympics this year to have a separate stall for Johnny and for his number 13. And they brought his jersey onto the ice in the post-game celebration. They brought his kids onto the ice for that gold medal picture. So really special that Team USA continues to celebrate the guy they called Johnny Hockey, who very, very well probably would have been a part of this American Olympic team. But also, I don't know, do you see the video of Quinn Hughes, star defenseman for the Americans, asking for another beer during the press conference? He looked like he was ordering it at Chili's, like flagging down the waitress or something like that, trying to sneak one more beer in at the press conference.
He's ordering from a waitress at Chili's. Well, there's a visual for you. All right. PK does have one of those stories. I think it was with the Bulls in L.A. when he was working for the Daily Breeze. And he saw the guys, literally the world champions, millionaires, everybody scrambling for quarters to empty the vending machine. That's why I gave you that empty the vending machine reference. They're like, whatever it is, whatever liquid it is, I'm going to throw it across the room and splash it all over people. PK said it was total chaos, just absolute zoo. But it's what everybody's chasing. Everybody's chasing that moment. And with the exception of the Dodgers, you can't buy that moment. The Dodgers can. With the exception of the Dodgers, you can't buy that moment. You got to earn it. And when you get it, it's so sweet. And now he's Michael Jordan. He's a legend. He's got the. But when they won the first one, it was, he can score a lot of points. He's really good, but he's not a winner. You know? And believe it or not, even Jordan had to fight that label. And so at the age of 27, it was a wild celebration in the locker room in front of all the cameras and the media. That is, I love the last story, though. That is a great touch because the trauma comes in lots of different forms. And it's obvious, losing someone to a drunk driver. The trauma goes on. And people get they tend to get the feedback and the support in the moment. And and everybody's story is different, but they tend to get it in the moment and they tend not to get it in the long run so that they remember years later and do that. That is a really nice touch because I think that's one place as people we probably often fall down. So good for them.
Yeah, it was special in Milan. The Gaudreau family was there in the crowd as well, and you could tell it meant a lot to them when the anthem was being played, and Johnny's jersey was right there with the rest of the gold medalists. But incredible stuff. Can't wait for this to be a documentary at some point or a piece of long form content. I'm sure there's a ton of behind the scenes footage. It's going to be some great Netflix or HBO content, whatever it's going to be. Not quite Miracle on Ice 1980, but it is the first gold medal since 1980, that Miracle on Ice team for the U.S. in men's hockey. 46 years to the date when U.S. beat the Soviets in 1980, that miracle game, 46 years to the date, the Americans win gold against Team Canada. Much different set of circumstances, but another huge day for hockey in the United States of America, and a day we can all be proud of, like that day back in 1980.
Mike, we appreciate it. We will talk to you again next week after we hear you call a couple of games, and then we'll get into the whole playoff race. It looks like 5 teams fighting for 2 wild cards, or you could say 7 teams fighting for 4 playoff spots, but 2 in the Pacific Division, the worst division in hockey, are guaranteed, whoever finishes second, third. So it ought to be crazy, and we will talk with you about that next time. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, let's limit PK's PTO to like 40 days this year. I think he's getting up towards the 50 mark. So
I just think
let's try to bring it down to just a couple of weeks.
He just takes time off when he knows you're coming on. He's not really gone that much. It's personal. You two have a beef. I don't understand it. It's just, you two just going at it.
Yeah, that sounds.
I brought up Purdue for him though, because I know he would have brought that up. I saw that Purdue Indiana score. I thought you got to bring that up with Mike. All right, thanks a lot, Mike.
Thanks, guys.
All right, there's Mike Folta talking hockey now. Let's pivot to Kevin Young. BYU hosts UCF tonight, 9 o'clock, ESPN2. Both teams 8-6 in conference. Both teams looking like NCAA tournament teams right now. Here's Kevin Young looking forward to the game.
Coach, obviously emotional, much-needed win on Saturday. What's kind of the key to keeping it rolling this week and not letting the highs of this past weekend distract or get in the way of moving forward?
Yeah, I just talked to the guys about that. I just think understanding the why behind that was why we were able to win that game. And the bottom line is we executed for 40 minutes and we played extremely hard. And so I think our guys understand, how important that win was. And I think that just the of a smart group of guys. I think they understand just how important it is to, that time of year, to turn things up. And so, you got a UCF team coming in that's, tied with us in the standings. I think everybody understands, there's no time to wait around and to build on what we did.
Mitch, are you there? Okay, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, sorry, I was just away. Kevin, so much was made earlier in the year about slow starts. Over the past week, it seemed like there was more success out of the gates, especially against two of the higher ranked teams in the country. What do you attribute to recent stronger starts from this new look group?
I don't know if I would point, what I'm going to say directly to that, but I think overall, man, as a staff, I think we're giving the guys a lot more clarity. I think there's a lot less guessing. Not that they were guessing before, so I shouldn't even say guessing. I just think the clarity. I think the guys understand exactly what the plan is on offense, exactly what the plan is on defense. I think that's allowed the guys to come out and play a little bit harder and freer to start games, and continue it throughout the game. So I think that's been a big difference between what we've done the last few games and what we were doing earlier on in the year.
And then I wanted to ask you, we all see what AJ does on the court every night, but I'm curious, what have been your impressions of how AJ has performed as a leader of your team away from the court and when the spotlight isn't on him?
I've been very impressed. He's a guy that has a great personality. He's friends with a lot of guys off the court. I enjoy watching him and Rob, just be able to, let their personality shine within the group. AJ is just a likable guy, and I think his teammates enjoy being around him. I do push him and Rob to try to be more, not just vocal leaders, but leaders by example. And I think they've answered the call there, and I'm going to continue to push them to do that.
All right, Jackson, you're up.
Kevin, you mentioned earlier just being tied in the standings with UCF. What are your overall thoughts on the Knights and just what kind of challenges do they present for tomorrow?
Yeah, what I see on tape is a lot of really good one-on-one basketball players. I think they're big and strong. They do a good job of going at matchups that they like, and they get down, to their spots, whether that's, mid-range or to the basket. And so, we'll have to do a good job with our one-on-one defense and be, prideful in that, but also being able to make sure we have good help, and guard the ball with five guys. But again, I think we understand what it is for them. This is a great opportunity for them to build up their resume. And so I'm sure it's going to be a very intense basketball game, and our guys are ready for that challenge.
And then on against Iowa State, the rebounding was a great strength you guys had. You said it was one of the reasons why you won the game. What's your confidence level in sustaining kind of that success in the rebounding, especially in the offensive glass?
It's something we talk about, all the time. And so, that was and continues to be one of my major concerns without Richie is he was one of our best rebounders on both ends of the floor. And so challenging guys like, Mihailo and to be more consistent on the glass, challenging AJ. AJ had one of his highest offensive crash rates of the season last game. Obviously Hadim is a rebounding machine, and he's been able to fill that gap for us a little bit. So, just guys have to continue to do more. I think Caba's been a come back to life. It's the Caba that we all know and love, what we've seen the last couple games. And so I think we're getting contributions from different guys on the glass, and our guys understand that when that is a strength of ours, we're a very, very hard team to beat because, on the defensive end, it really, really allows us to get out in transition where I think we're very good. And then on the offensive side, it becomes part of the possession battle, which I've been talked about a lot.
All right, we'll go Sean, then Mitch.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned Hadim, which I was going to bring up. So let me just pivot a little bit back to UCF, because this is a team that's playing with a lot of confidence right now. Obviously, a big win over the weekend up the road in Salt Lake. Does that kind of capture your guys' attention to make sure maybe help make sure that you don't kind of lower the energy from what you had on Saturday night?
I mean, you definitely respect their ability to go on the road and get a win, especially cross country like that. But I mean, and I say this with all due respect to UCF. I don't need to see anything for any team to grab my attention. I mean, our league is a bear. Everybody understands it. Any team can beat anybody on a given night. They've proven they can beat any team in our league. They're well coached. They have guys who are really talented, like I just said. But more than anything, you just look at the standings and where they're at, and what they're saying in their locker room. This is a huge game for them, as it is for us. It's a massive game for both teams. And so, our guys will be ready to go for those reasons.
All right, Mitch, we'll finish up with you.
Yeah, Kevin, we saw Hadim leave around the 2:20 mark in that game on Saturday. Is he okay for tomorrow?
Yeah, he was a little limited today in practice, but he's the type of kid, man, I think you'd have to saw his leg off for him to not play in the game.
Fair enough. And kind of a fun, lighthearted question. I asked this because I remember you told us when AJ had long sleeves one game, it kind of threw you off. You're big on routines. The team tomorrow is going to wear blackout jerseys, from what I understand. Do you have to sign off on that because it's a little bit different look and aesthetic on the court?
That's news to me, but that's a little bit different. The sleeves definitely were in its own category, but I think our guys will be ready to go. I trust our crew that puts all that together.
One more thing for me, I'm just curious, is the final stretch run here, do you get caught up in any sort of scenarios or kind of make yourself aware of what possibilities are in front of your team when it comes to Big 12 tournament seeding and bracketology, or are you just kind of not worrying about that at all?
I mean, I'm aware of it. I try to, I know more about it now this year than I did last year, so I talk to my coaches about it. And so I'm in tune with it. Bottom line is, regardless of where you are, clearly you want to be in the best situation you can be in terms of, whether it's seeding for the Big 12 or for NCAA. But I think the most important thing is just, playing at a high level, this time of year and being able to just execute, for 40 minutes, like I said. But yes, I do look at it. Like I said, I'm a fan of the game too. So I like knowing the landscape and seeing kind of where teams stack up. So it's we're infringing upon the best time of year in college sports. So here we go.
There's BYU basketball coach Kevin Young. All right, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag Utah Jazz.
The Utah Jazz blown out by Houston, 125-105. Rockets took control of the game, opened up a big lead. Late in the first quarter, it was 21 at the half, and it was done. Story of the game, Vince Williams Jr. appeared to severely injure his knee in the game. He hyperextended his leg. It is feared he tore his ACL. Honestly, watching the video, I don't know how he couldn't have. It looked like a total cheap shot. I mean, it's a transition to Sensabaugh got stripped of the ball at the top of the key. It's a 2-on-2 fast break the other way, and he's on the outside. As the four guys run to the hoop, he's the fourth guy from the game camera on the far sideline. Why you need to veer left and throw a shoulder into him is beyond me. And, the game was so well refereed, they didn't even call a foul. That was awesome. I was a little disappointed that head coach Will Hardy was only very angry. I was looking for explosion, tea kettle little flying and bouncing around the arena. He got mad and yelled, and I don't know. I don't know what the NBA is doing. I don't get it. But Vince Williams Jr., if he tore his ACL, figure a year, and it's an option year and $2.5 million on the line for him. And I think for the Jazz, they got to figure out, and we'll get into this later in the show, they have to figure out how good they want to be next year, how much they still want to be bringing along young guys, and how much they need to bring in people with playoff experience. Because otherwise, the way to get it is to lose. And they've only got this roster locked up for about 3 years here. Do you want to sacrifice one of them to losing because you guys don't have any playoff experience? So trying to figure out where Vince Williams fits in that. And he was intriguing. I hadn't seen enough of him. I mean, they know more because they've watched him around the league, but you still want to see how he fits in this club, this system with these teammates. And that's all up in smoke now. The Jazz also announced that Jusuf Nurkic is out for the season. He'll undergo nose surgery. He's a free agent. I expect we have seen the last of him. I'd bring him back as a backup center, but I think the backup center next year needs to be paid the minimum or close to it. And I think he can get more than that. Probably not from a really good team, but will somebody out there give him $6, $8, or $10 million? I'm not sure the Jazz want to go into any of those neighborhoods. So it's probably the last of Jusuf Nurkic, but we'll see how that plays out. Jazz beaten 125-105. Now they come home to face the New Orleans Pelicans. Not once, but twice. And it'll be interesting because the Pelicans are sitting on 16 wins. Jazz are sitting on 18 wins. If the Jazz can figure out a way to lose both these games, they would pull alongside the Pelicans, and New Orleans has already traded away their draft pick. And if anybody with a worse record than the Jazz is going to pass the Jazz, they should be prime suspect / contender number one. We'll see if the Jazz can lose these 2 home games. And I can't wait until we can stop talking about this. But for right now, we got about, we had 25 games now?
Got a 24.
24 games to talking like this, and then we can get back to talking about winning. All right, DJ and PK.
#NBA.
The Spurs went to Detroit to play the Pistons, and San Antonio in control the entire second half. They win 114-103. Victor Wembanyama, 21 points, 17 rebounds, 6 blocks. Going all Wilt Chamberlain on us there. Don't worry about the scoring stats. Not that Wilt couldn't score, because he could. But later in his career, winning games with rebounds and blocks. Too bad they didn't count blocks his whole career. I wonder what Wilt Chamberlain's total number of block shots is. It's a lot. And Victor Wembanyama channeling some of the all-time greats. 6 blocks. Potential NBA Finals matchup. Detroit's first in the East. San Antonio's second in the West. They played like it. It was chippy. They were throwing shoulders and shoving guys and trying to face guard guys in the corner, and Cade Cunningham pushing guys away, and they're going to the ground like they were running top speed and got hit shoulder to shoulder when they didn't expect it. A cheap shot on a fast break. Oh, sorry. Also, the Kings beat the Grizzlies. The Spurs sent the message to the Pistons, and the Kings pick up win number 13. They're not getting anywhere near the Jazz sitting on 18. They're going to have the worst record, but they did get a game. Phoenix Suns announced the swingman Dillon Brooks is out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken hand suffered last week. So assuming that the 4-week clock started then, not now, he's back in early April before the playoffs. Not long before the playoffs, but before the playoffs. DJ and PK.
#college basketball.
Remember what we were talking about yesterday? It's still happening. No matter how good you are, there are rough patches out there. Houston's 23-5. They're having a great year. They've also lost 3 in a row. Kansas beat them 69-56. Houston's problem, they defend. They're super aggressive. They rebound, but they just aren't scoring it. In this 3-game losing streak, they're barely giving up 70 points a game. I think it's 71. But they're only scoring about 63 points a game, and they got 56 in this game. They've got to find a way to score the basketball. And right now they can't, and that's why they've lost 3 in a row. North Carolina, who, like BYU and Arizona and Texas Tech, is a ranked team missing a key guy, but they managed to win. At home, they sneak past Louisville 77-74. More hoops coming up tonight. Busy schedule in the Big 12. There are 6 games, including Iowa State at Utah. You would think 23-4 Iowa State should win easily, and they're 12.5-point favorites over Utah. Utah has been playing a little better, and Iowa State's 3-4 on the road. I would think Iowa State gets it, but they haven't been great on the road, so you don't know for sure. 9 o'clock tonight, the last of all the Big 12 games. UCF is at BYU. These teams are both 8-6. In the last segment, you just heard the head coach, Kevin Young, talking about this one. You know, is it a big game and all that? And is it going to be hard? He's like, I don't even look at the schedule. The league is hard. And obviously they're going to be motivated. Just look at the standings. These teams are tied for 6th place in the league. Now there's 4 teams on 4 losses, so maybe they can catch some of them, get up to 4th or 5th in the league. That impacts the seeding. If you can find a way to get to 4th, win on a tiebreaker or something, then maybe you can get the double bye. So there's stuff at stake here, to be sure. Plus just momentum and a quality win. 2 teams that right now are both projected to be in the NCAA tournament field. BYU's 20-7. UCF is 19-7. BYU will be a better seed. I think they played a tougher schedule and are benefiting from that non-conference schedule. So it's not like they're on the same seed line. But good game tonight. And they were all in to win the last one. And you always wonder how much of that energy can they bring back around again. And is AJ really going to go 29-10-9? I would guess not. Because I really don't expect anyone in a 40-minute game to go 29-10-9. But they are playing an NBA style. He does get the ball in his hands a lot, which gives him a chance to get the points and get the assists and that. And he seems to be much more focused on rebounding. Now, can they get Rob Wright III going? Because you had 2 other role guys who went for 13 and 17. And with Garrard Davis Jr., they need a little more of that consistently. If he's having 5 and 6 point games, when he was the 4th option, maybe you can live with that. But now that he's the 3rd option, they need more. So we'll see what we get tonight. Late game, 9 o'clock, ESPN2. But they went basketball games for the West Coast, and it'll be 8 o'clock. It's prime time in the West, so we get a 9 o'clock weeknight start here. DJ and PK.
#NFL.
It's that time of year, franchise tags. Who can't agree on a contract? What team is just going to say, you're a guy, and we're putting a tag on you? And the Cowboys are doing it with George Pickens. He'll make probably around $28 million because they're averaging salaries, the top salaries around the league. So until everybody's signed, we don't know for sure. But he's probably going to make about $28 million. The Falcons are going to put a franchise tag on tight end Kyle Pitts. So he'll probably end up around $16 million. Then the line between tight ends and wide receivers, it just gets thinner and thinner. More and more tight ends are spread out. More and more with formations. Wide receivers are brought in, and a bunch of it. It's a little bit like the point guard thing. It's not quite that. There's a little more of a delineation. Some of the guys really rarely catch passes and are blockers. But in the elite tight ends, how are they not slot receivers? But whatever. Decides how much money you make, and Pitts probably make about $16 million. Eagles coach Nick Sirianni said there's mutual interest between wide receiver A.J. Brown and the team, and Brown continuing his time in Philly despite Brown's open frustration with his role and his fit. Quote, AJ's a great player, and AJ's a good teammate, and AJ's a good person. Does he want to be here? Yes. Do I want him here? Yes. Will AJ be here next season? I think we're still in the spot. I can't guarantee how anything is going to play out into next season. I'm thinking I'm going to be the coach next season, but you can't guarantee anything past tomorrow. Funny he would bring that up. Okay, we're at the point in the season where the coaching thing should be settled, but we know the player's location isn't. There's trades, there's a draft coming up, free agency, guys could still
move.
New
league year starts in 2 weeks.
And that's when the money changes, and it's all money-driven, hard cap league. The NFL Competition Committee is discussing the possibility of authorizing replay officials to throw flags for specific penalties. The biggest role they'd play under current reports about what they do is to monitor non-football acts that have gone unpenalized by on-field officials. Is that like somebody leaving the sidelines or something? What are we talking about?
Yeah, we're just talking about stuff that's
non-football acts.
Punches.
They miss, their back is turned.
Yeah, and stuff
I've never figured out why you punch someone who has shoulder pads and a helmet.
Sure,
but nonetheless.
Stuff like that has slid before, so this is a chance for them to catch it.
Could the replay official make a call if they saw a replay and saw a guy veer 5 feet to his left to blow up a guy who was running on a fast break?
You would like to think so.
DJ and PK.
#college football.
Army coach Jeff Monken suggested he'd be open to moving the annual Army-Navy game to Thanksgiving weekend to get the college football playoff started earlier and having the national championship game played around New Year's Day. It's currently being played in late January. Why would they suggest that? Why would they give that up? Because they know they're going to, and they want to make it look like it's their idea. That would be my first reaction. To which I would say, Give them the waiver, let them play week 0, and have that be the game that plays on Wednesday night to kick off Thanksgiving weekend. How cool would that be? Prime time. DJ and Pete, traditions are going. This one's going too. They need that date for a playoff. They need to stop playing playoff games in January. The season needs to be continuous. We don't need these long layoffs. Just keep playing every weekend. They do it at every other level, and it works out great. So just keep playing every weekend with the playoff. And these guys want to be in the playoffs, so they don't want to have a regular season game that gets in the way. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Detroit Tigers ace Tarek Skubal said he will make just one start for the United States in the World Baseball Classic in the pool play portion of the tournament before returning to spring training. So he's staying on track, but if they can plot his innings, he can fly in, do his thing, turn around and fly out, he'll do that. But he doesn't want to completely upset spring training. I wish the World Baseball Classic had more, what is the word I'm looking for? Continuity? Less all-star-ish, more team. But I do want to see the best players, and I'll take it. And, man, one thing I've learned with soccer and with these tournaments conflicting is you just kind of grin and bear it and go watch the game and hope it's entertaining. It's not what I would draw up if I were starting from scratch, but it is what it is. And it's not what I'd draw up for the World Baseball Classic if I were starting from scratch, but it is what it is. And I'm glad he's open to making one start. I wish you go back to spring training, and then when they get into the medal round play, flying back in for one more game. I get staying on rotation. There's so many pitchers having arm injuries. To mess with your whole process of building up your arm, I don't know that it offers any guarantees, because if it did, I don't think there'd be this many arm injuries. But you don't want to have an arm injury and know you didn't do things the way you wanted to do them to prepare for the season, and then have to live with the what if. Even though everyone is trying to do it right, and we're still getting a rash of arm injuries. Of all the sports where people are worried about their guys going and playing international competition, I mean, there are injuries in basketball and there are injuries in soccer. It does happen. But a baseball pitcher, that seems to me to be the biggest risk. When it comes to risk reward, it seems to me like that is where a team owner and a club are biting off the most risk. Having said that, the World Baseball Classic's fun. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
Mikko Rantanen suffered an injury in Milan during the semifinal round of the Olympic Stars. During the Olympics, the Dallas Stars forward will miss at least the first game back from break as he gets checked by doctors. So, Kings lost a guy. Colorado could be shorthanded. Dallas could be shorthanded, although those are more temporary.
This one's a big one because Rantanen's one of the top forwards in all of the league, and if he has any significant period of time that he's out, Dallas can see their seeding drop.
Well, Dallas, yes, but where they stand right now, they are battling Minnesota for home ice in the first round. So that's at stake.
Correct.
But other than that, I mean, they're not going to fall that far. 13 points in front of the Mammoth, who are fourth. They're not going to fall into a wild card spot, I wouldn't think. I mean, that would be be a massive fall. And now, they do want home ice against Minnesota, and we also know that home ice in the NHL is the least important of all the home arena, stadium field advantages, court, whatever.
Yeah, it's just this
because you want your goaltender to be on fire. You want him playing like, I don't know, he's in a gold medal game, and he's sticking his stick behind him and saving shots he can't really even see.
What's up, Connor Hellebuck?
I mean, just trying to pick a recent example of what I'm looking for. Utah Mammoth ready to get back to work tomorrow night. The Colorado Avalanche will be in town with the best record in the NHL. And I suppose Dallas is sitting there, hey, we're only 6 points back. We could catch those guys. We could have the best record in the entire league. So probably what they're thinking isn't so much about how far they'll fall, but how far they won't be able to climb if they don't have him for a long period of time. All right, coming up, you're still scheduling interviews. Who we got at 8 o'clock?
Stephen Nesbitt, he covers Major League Baseball for The Athletic. He made a trip out here to Utah to examine what the Miller organization is doing to bring Major League Baseball to Utah. Talked with a lot of the power players, so we're going to get his feel for MLB to Utah.
All right, and Bob Casper, co-host of Real Golf Radio, at 9 o'clock. Major changes coming to the PGA Tour. What does Bob think of them? How many of them can I change? Wait, if they're going to do that, why can't they do this? This is in my wheelhouse, people. So we'll talk to Bob at 9 o'clock. It's also a Utah Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and we'll be giving away tickets to the Jazz and the Pelicans Saturday night at the Delta Center. We'll do that at 8:30 and again at 9:30. All right, DJ and PK, when we come back, the question of the day, we're going to send out Jusuf Nurkic the right way. It's like he's a senior and it's his last home game. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
This is JJ and Alex.
I got this. I just thought it was funny because they came out with NBA front office rankings, the highest kudos. It's not just about winning right now. It's that they built something 5 years ago, and they're being rewarded for it now. And to get there 4 or 5 years ago started with, guess what? What we're seeing right now with all these smaller teams. The Jazz are they're brand new at this. You know what I mean? Like
they don't have the tanking history that all these other top 10 teams, the teams with the top 10 front offices in the league, have all tanked.
These general managers are asked to put together rosters. How do you do it? Within the reason and within the rules that they have been given. And so in the same breath that you're congratulating these front offices for building, you're also fining them for following the rules that you put out there, Adam Silver, in the league. And this is what we've been living. The reality that these guys have. They are dang smart. They would be extremely dumb if they didn't try to do the same exact thing that everybody else was doing.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 7 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The KSL Sports Zone and Beehive Meals are honoring people that impact youth sports in our communities. Nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week at KSLSports.com/contest. And listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. It's the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week. The Utah Jazz shut down Jusuf Nurkic for the season. Nose surgery. He is a free agent this summer. What is his legacy? Would you try to bring him back next season? Then we don't have to have the legacy talk. How about that? Ethan, for the right price, he'd be a good backup to Walker Kessler. True. I don't think they're going to find that price. Shelley's right there with Ethan. It is possible. I'd like to see him return. It's my understanding he's been a good locker room guy as well. Yes, Shelley, that is what we have heard. They've said that many times. A lot of the young players like his veteran presence. They like his ability to pass the ball and get them buckets. And they like his general overall demeanor and all that. Eric, after the strong year he had, he's probably going to be too expensive. I assume the Jazz are going to need the dough to try to sign Kessler. Eric, I assume you are correct. And I don't think it's just Kessler. They do need to sign Walker Kessler, and that will cost real dollars. But then when you start prioritizing, what else will they need? Do they need a backup center? What's the most important need? They would need a backup center, right? At the 4, they're pretty good because if Jaren Jackson Jr. is starting there for the 10 or 15 minutes, he's sitting down in a game, Markkanen can play there. Now that opens up some time at the 3 where they're going to deploy Ace Bailey. Do you view him as more of a 2 or more of a 3? Keontae and Bailey will play a lot of minutes. But I think they need if they really want to open the championship window here, that's a different discussion than if they want to be a lot better next year and go to the playoffs. To me, those are two different things, and they'll have to make different decisions in the offseason. I think with the young guys getting better and with getting Walker Kessler back and the addition of Jaren Jackson Jr., you put all those things together, I can see him winning 45 or 50 games and getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. But that's not a championship window. That gets you to the middle of the league. I'm very confident this team can make a big leap and get to the middle of the league. But the Jazz have talked about opening a championship window. When I hear championship window, I think about being one of the best 4 teams in the league. I think about getting to a conference final. Now, given how much stronger the West is than the East, you could be one of the best 4 teams in the league and be out in the second round. I think that's going to be true in the playoffs this year. And I suspect there's a decent chance it could be true next year, but let's let them set the rosters before we worry about that. So if the Jazz want to be one of the top 4 teams in the league, and if they want to get there, they have 3 or 4 years because they've signed Markkanen for 3, and Jaren Jackson Jr. has 3 plus an option for a 4th that is a player option, so you can't really count on that. So they've got the 27 playoffs, the 28 playoffs, and the 29 playoffs, and then who knows? Markkanen's a free agent, and Jaren Jackson Jr. will have the right to opt out. So if you really want to get in a championship window and open it and keep it open, That's not 1 or 2 years. So that, and those things were said before Austin showed up here. And you get new information, and you get new people, and you get a new opinion. But right now, until I hear him say otherwise, I think they're opening the championship window. And while the young guys are getting better, they're not ready for that yet. They're nowhere near ready for the playoffs. I think if they want to get in the playoffs and be able to win a series or two, they're going to need to add a veteran guard. They need to make a Mike Conley type deal. Where's somebody who's been around the block a couple times, has been in the playoffs, has won some playoff series, and has lost some playoff series? How do they find that guy? Now, it's possible that guy won't be available. So they got to prioritize money for that guy. Because your backcourt right now with Ace Bailey and Collier and with Keontae George, that is a young and inexperienced backcourt, and you can't seriously believe you're going to make a deep playoff run with no experience in that young a backcourt. So they got to prioritize adding a veteran there. So as much as all of you who said, hey, Jusuf Nurkic is good, but I don't know that they can afford that money. Yeah, right? Because they got to do this. And maybe if they want to play Markin in the backup 4 minutes, maybe they got to bring in someone who moves between the 2 and the 3 spot. Someone who can play a lot of minutes at the 3. So I see 1 or 2 perimeter guys having to be added that are going to get a lot more minutes and have a lot more impact than the backup center. I just don't see how there's going to be money for Nurkic. I do think he's going to be able to go out and, there's mid-level exceptions and all that kind of stuff out there. What can he find in a $6, $8, or $10 million range? I'll bet he finds something. What will the Jazz have left for the backup center after they add these 2 other guys? Peanuts, minimum, would be my guess. So I don't really see him as a fit here. Lanny, they could bring him back for the right money. You're right, Lanny, but that's just going to be a hard needle to thread. Reed, I absolutely want to bring him back. Okay, but I think you got these other needs over here. And you're going to have to figure that out. I mean, if you want to go young, but it's gonna lead to defeat in the first round in April. There are other people willing to let him go. One of the top 3 centers of all time for the 2025-2026 Jazz team. Oh, Dustin, very clever. Very clever. Good comedy right there, Dustin. Mark, he is the master of the triple-double. Craig, Mr. Triple-double. Thomas, triple-doubles. Agreed. We will remember the triple-doubles. They have been so rare in Jazz history. But yes, we will remember him for that. DeJuro says, at first, the Sexton trade didn't look good, but in reality, it was great. I'd offer him a new contract to back up Kessler. Well, DeJuro, careful with that money. Maybe that will be his price on the open market. We'll have to see. I'd be surprised. Usually, I was told this a long time ago, and I think it's held true. Usually, when a player has to take a big pay cut, and this would be a big pay cut for Kessler, not for Kessler, for Jusuf Nurkic. I mean, he's at $19.3 million right now. I assume he's going to find 6, 8, or 10 out there. Maybe he'll find more. For the Jazz, I'm thinking 2 or 3. That's what they're going to have. Just a little bit. I think his legacy is he's been fun. He has been a bright spot, a silver lining. I think it's one of the reasons Jazz fans have such warm feelings towards him. They didn't know what to expect. It hadn't gone well in Phoenix. They get him in a trade for a guy who was popular and had a lot of positive energy, but a guy they had to move if Keontae George was going to take off. And Keontae George did take off, so it was a great trade in that regard. And they brought in a guy who was fun and entertaining. Didn't really lead to anything. They weren't able to trade him before the deadline and get something for him. So he's going to walk away and give him cap room. May they use that cap room wisely on Walker Kessler. What is his Jazz legacy? Eldon says no one knows. No one knows? No one knows. Come on, this season isn't going anywhere. We'll remember this. Do you remember anything about the 3 seasons between Stockton and Malone?
I remember one thing.
What's that?
Andre Kirilenko.
Okay. So you remember a guy who brought a little sunshine, entertained you, made exciting plays.
Yeah, 5x5s and flirting with triple
5x5s, which we never heard of before.
I know.
Never heard of after.
Exactly. But I'm just saying.
Oh, we want to be entertained.
Sure. Yeah, but you're right.
He's good.
Like, these down years are quickly forgotten amidst
their blur.
Yeah, like everything else that goes
Jerry
on.
was awesome the first year and should have been the coach of the year. How did they get to 40 wins? I remember that. And the third
was it 42
year,
wins or 40 wins?
I think it was 42 and 40.
42 and 40, and they were supposed to have like.
But I just think of tiers, 30, 35, 40. But yes, how did he have a winning record?
Well, when they were projected to win 8 games that year.
That was by one person writing one column. I'd have to go back and
go back and look at that roster.
It was bad. The Vegas number I think was somewhere in the 20s, but I really don't even remember that.
Yeah, but
because the rebuilds we just remember as those 3 years.
Correct. And then when you finally make a run at the Western Conference Finals with Boozer.
The third year was really disappointing because D-Will was on the roster.
Sure. They brought him in, obviously, and they're starting.
The second year was bad, so they could get the 6th pick, so they could trade it for D-Will.
Correct.
And then the third year, he was there, but he and Jerry for at least half the season, no, not good at all. And Carlos Boozer was hurting in a walking boot, and the walking boot came off right at the end of the season. Honestly, a PR should have just stepped in and said, this is going to be such bad PR, just keep the boot on. After the last game, nobody will know, but don't take the boot off with 2 games left in the season.
Yeah.
Just keep it on.
Bad.
That was a bad visual. Unfortunate.
Well, but we also, this same era, I remember Andre Kirilenko would name the date and time when he was going to return.
That came later. In those 3 years, that was the best of Andre.
Oh, you're right.
Because Andre could be the star and he had the ball.
And then he
didn't like being the 4th option.
And then, things changed.
But when he's the 4th option, that's when he was reading Russian novels and announcing, I will be back a week from Thursday. And Phil Johnson looking around like, how does he know that?
I'll be back in 3 weeks' time.
It feels like pouting. Yeah. And you know why it felt like that?
Because it's what it was.
There you go. So what are we going to remember out of these 4 years? We'll remember a 10-3 start year 1, and they could have had a worse draft pick or a better draft pick. They didn't have to be so deep in the lottery there. And we'll remember Nurkic getting triple doubles because he entertained us on cold winter nights, and he put a smile on our face, and it was entertainment. And it'll be interesting because now that he's seen this, Will Hardy and every other coach will keep that in the back of his mind. When will they have a big, whether it's a starting big or a backup, who can step out on the floor, open the lane for cutters, and throw bounce passes and hit guys for layups? It's not something you see a lot of in the NBA, so it's a different way to score. It's a little something to have in your back pocket.
Well, it's just running your offense through a different guy. Nikola Jokic is kind of the icon of that, but Jusuf Nurkic is just as capable in doing that.
And they were on the same team at one time.
Yeah, they're drafted by the same team.
But you get why Denver did what they did.
I was going to say, there's a reason why one's still playing for Denver.
Well, that's not a bad legacy to be the guy who entertained the fans in dark times. Gave them something to cheer for, something to smile about.
Well, and he's also been a guy who's been pretty vocal on social media about different things. And I think he has endeared himself to Jazz fans in a short period, especially considering, remember, DJ, when they brought him in, it was kind of thought, okay, is he trade bait? Like, what exactly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
I wondered that every day until the trade deadline.
We all did, yes. But to his credit, I think he ingratiated himself to the franchise and to the fan base. And
there's been enough conflict here. If anyone comes in here, provides some good times, smiles and says, I like the place, we warm to him right away.
Yes, that's
and
right.
I do say we.
No, yeah.
It's a
collective.
Local media does.
Yeah, it's a collective.
The fans
we. Yeah.
do.
Yeah, it's absolute.
And even the management that's been here a long time. We warmed him right away. But is he going to be willing to come back for a lot less money? Hey, easy there with that kind of talk.
Well, there's a level we're willing to go to in terms of our endearment.
I just think that if the Jazz are going to win, have any postseason success, and there are people out there who would argue with me about the level of regular season success they can have with Collier and Sensabaugh and Filipowski. And I get that argument. I think they can have quite a bit. I think the guy who clearly is going to get squeezed here is Filipowski. He doesn't play the 3. He doesn't play the 5. And now they've got Markkanen and Jackson. So if they, assuming they're not signing free agents, if they have to make a trade for a backup center or for a point guard or for a wing player I was just talking about, he would be in it. And I think he has value. Sure. I just don't think he can play a very big role for a team that wants to be in the top quarter, top third of the league. Now, that still leaves 2/3 or 3/4 of the league, and he can score and he can rebound. Defensively, obviously, he's not the best defender. His ability to move laterally, not fabulous.
He's not a shot blocker. You're right. And here's the thing. He's a second-round pick. So
if he plays hard and rebounds and stays in the league, good for him.
Absolutely. And you can earn a role that way. But to your point, DJ, you don't.
They're gonna have to make 2 or 3 trades here in the offseason. If they only have to make 1, I'll be surprised. And I think they can fill up the backup center with a free agent. But the other guys, for the level of quality I think they need to do what I think they want to do, which is win a postseason series or maybe win 2, they need veterans who've been through it, if nothing else.
Sure.
They're going to ask Keontae and Ace with 0 playoff experience, and quite frankly, Markkanen with 0 playoff experience to figure this out. They got to bring in some guys who've been there and done that.
Hey.
Otherwise, in this 3-year window, the first year is sacrificed to getting experience, and then you just try to go off that in the last 2.
But to your point, if you can go out and acquire some guys who have got that experience that can kind of lead the guys through the wars, that's a positive thing.
And I believe they got to have someone who's going to have the ball in his hands and initiate the offense against pressure in a high-stakes situation. And I also think they need a wing who can score it, who can shoot the 3, who's been in the same kind of situation. Bryce Sensabaugh has not been in a situation. Sensabaugh could easily get squeezed in this. I think there's room for Collier in the long run. He's really good at what he does. He's not complete at the level they need. But I think I'd be comfortable if he were the fourth guard in that rotation, who's playing 10 to 12 minutes a game when everybody's healthy, and obviously there'll be some nights when guys are out, and then he'll have to play a little more. That gives him a chance to play and continue his development. I don't know how Filipowski, and I think this is the point David Locke was making, but he didn't want to say anybody's name when he was on the air, but he's talking about guys. It was easy to go back and say, where are the minutes for Filipowski with Jackson and Markkanen here, and how is he going to continue to develop if he doesn't get playing time? Or if he only gets it sporadically when somebody's out? So you can see how these young guys get squeezed because the timeline's been moved up. With the Jaren Jackson trade, they've got 3 years. Now, they may have more than that. Markkanen might still be really good, and he might re-up. And Jackson might say, hey, I'll play another year. I got the option. Or he might sign a new contract at that deal. But you can't sit here right now and know that's going to happen. So you got to play him for the 3 years. And then if things work out and you get more for the window with these 2 guys, great. But that's a long way away in the NBA, so they'll have to figure out how it goes. But with all of that, I think it means that Nurkic getting shut down is probably the last time we see Nurkic in a Jazz uniform. And I don't think that's critical for the arc of the franchise going forward, but for fans who paid their money and cheered for the guy and felt good about the guy, which is all sports comes down to in the end, really, well, it's good to take a minute and think about his legacy. DJ and PK, when we come back, 8 o'clock, Utah, moving to the forefront of the sports scene. The Athletic writing a huge story on that. We will talk with the writer coming up at 8 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, the PGA Tour is getting ready to turn everything upside down and break a lot of tradition and maybe open the door for LIV in the process. So that's at 9 o'clock. And Scotty G is packing his bags. He's got to do a show today, and then he's packing his bags for San Diego. Utah, I think he said he's packing his bags. Scotty G's moving back to Idaho? What's he doing? No, he's going to San Diego because Utah State's at San Diego State Wednesday night. Big game in the Mountain West Conference race. We'll talk with him at 8:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whirls around and down. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone is your exclusive home of the Utah Jazz. And we want to send you to the Delta Center to see the Jazz in action. Listen every Tuesday for the Jazz Ticket Tuesday Sounder at 30 past the hour, every hour, all day long. And if you're caller number 12, you'll be on your way to an upcoming game.
Buy one, you'll get one free.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, every Tuesday throughout the NBA season on your radio home for the Utah Jazz. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's NFL Combine Week. All kinds of stories out there for those of you who love football. And of course, Will Backus at CBS Sports went and tallied up which schools are sending the most players to the Combine. Oh, it's instructive. I think there's a dozen schools that are sending 9 players or more. 6 in the SEC, 4 in the Big Ten, 2 in the ACC, 0 from the Big 12. Clemson and Miami are the ACC teams. And it's mostly teams that were in the playoff. Texas A&M leads the way with 13, Alabama with 12, Ohio State and LSU with 11, Georgia and Oklahoma with 10, along with Miami. I don't know how Florida had 9 and made the mess that they've made down there in Florida. Go Gators. And then there's our local teams. Utah sending 5 guys to the Combine, and BYU is sending 2, Chase Roberts and Jack Kelly. Now, obviously, it isn't a direct line between how many NFL guys you have and if you win or not. I mean, if BYU's only sending 2, Utah's sending 5, but Utah beat BYU and finished ahead of them in the standings, and they got a 3-game winning streak over them. So the other guys matter. And you might have NFL guys who are underclassmen who aren't there yet, and you might have guys who aren't good enough for the Combine, but they're still really good college players. I actually read a really interesting story on the guys who weren't invited to the Combine who went on to have great NFL careers. If you remember Malcolm Butler making an interception at the goal line to win the Super Bowl and sent Tom Brady to his 6th win, and Brady's standing on the sideline jumping around like a top. He's literally not on the field when the game is won. Well, old Malcolm Butler wasn't invited. Julian Edelman and Wes Welker, who did win Super Bowls with the Patriots, not invited to the Combine. James Harrison, who won 2 with the Steelers, not invited to the Combine. And Antonio Gates, who's in the Hall of Fame, not invited to the Combine. So it is possible to have a great NFL career, but they invite 317 guys have been invited this year, which is almost 10 people per team. And if you're going to win in college football, you need those guys. This is the quest for the Big 12. And we can sit here and argue Utah and BYU all day. It's a national pastime here in the state of Utah, if I can mix my metaphors. It's a state pastime here in the state of Utah. But the fact is, if you add Utah and BYU's players together, you come up with 7, and that still doesn't put them in the list of top dozen. Now, there is another team that's not on that list who I think is very impressive and who could win a conference and or a national title this year, and that's Oregon. And I think Oregon is a great example of, a lot of their best players are underclassmen and not quite there yet. And I haven't added up their number, but I bet they're sitting at 6, 7, or 8, just short of this list. But probably with great underclassmen and a bunch of freshmen and sophomores who are coming back. Because Oregon the last 2 years has gone 25-3. And their losses have been to the national champs. One to Ohio State in the playoffs. They were undefeated, and they lost to them in the Rose Bowl. And then the other is Indiana, who went out and beat them in the regular season and then beat them again in the playoffs. So there's an argument that Oregon's been number 2, and they're not on this list. But I think they're also loaded with freshmen and sophomores, and they will be on that list shortly. So the question is, when it's a player so good even the NFL wants him, how do you get him? And the answer to that is cash, reputation, cash, coaching, the ability to develop guys, cash.
Playing time. And, of course, I don't want to leave off cash. Money. If you're playing a sport where at any moment, and we just watched a Jazz game where in one moment a player was healthy and the next moment he got hit, /cheap shotted, and tore his ACL. It can happen in basketball. You know it can happen in football. Let's not begrudge somebody who was making $100,000 or $50,000 or $200,000 at San Diego State and takes off and gets $1 million from Arizona State or Texas Tech or Utah or BYU. But at the same time, and that's what's happened, San Diego State had a great defense and is totally getting plundered. The seniors are going to the Combine and the other guys are going to other schools. But you can't really get cranky about it if someone's going to double, triple, or quadruple their money. Yuck, if someone offers you to quadruple your money, I expect a wave. DJ, it's been great. It's been a pleasure. Bye.
It has. I expect that. But I really don't expect much more than that. If you pack up and your things are gone within the hour, maybe you could hang on till 10. That would be great. But I really wouldn't expect you back tomorrow if you can quadruple your money.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah.
And it's the same thing here.
Yeah.
And the Utah and BYU guys who take off and go to Michigan or wherever else, Michigan's got more money. And they got more access to the big time. Utah and BYU have some access to the big time. They have more access than they used to have. But you look at this list of schools, and you got to be on it, with the exception of Oregon. I mean, Florida's on it, and they're terrible. But how did Miami get back to national prominence? Well, they got 10 guys going to the Combine. How did Indiana, with zero football tradition, well, they got 9 guys going to the Combine, and their quarterback's going to go number 1. Now, Iowa's got 9. Obviously, they're probably all defensive players and nobody on offense. Iowa's offense has been a mess. Actually, it's not true. They got a couple linemen and a wide receiver going. So they've got some offensive guys. Penn State, they've got 9 guys going. Yeah. So they lost 3 games, and they think they're loaded with good players, so they fired their coach. So how do you get yourself on that list? And Utah and BYU, we got all these high hopes and all these expectations, and they could. And we saw BYU, if you're old enough, you saw BYU go undefeated and win a national championship in '84, and you've seen the Utes in 2 Rose Bowls. And if you're old enough, you remember the Sugar Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl as well. I mean, they've been there. They've been on the precipice. They've been close, BYU, in a Cotton Bowl. But honestly, you see these top 10 teams, and Utah's record against them, not good. In the Pac-12, one of the Oregon teams they lost to, a Washington team that went to the playoff, the 2 Rose Bowls. It's hard. I mean, we've seen that these teams are really good at beating the teams they're supposed to beat. And the teams they're supposed to beat now include a lot of 7 and 8 win teams. And they can beat them very consistently. And that's not easy, and there's a trick to that. And that's why coaches keep their jobs or sometimes get better jobs. But when they start playing other 10, 11, 12 win teams, how'd it go with Tech? It didn't go well. Now you get BYU Colorado in a bowl game and they smoke them. So they can beat ranked teams, but when you get to that top tier or 2, gotta have more of these guys who are going to the Combine. When we come back, Stephen Nesbitt writes for The Athletic and has been tracking the rise of the Utah sports scene and why is Utah at the front of the baseball expansion race. We'll talk with him next. Stay with us. DJ and PK. PK enjoying a little vacation this week. Joined right now by Stephen Nesbitt, though. He writes for The Athletic, and he just wrote, I don't know, Stephen, what was that, 10,000 words? 15,000 words? How long was that?
You know what? If you know a writer like me, every first draft is probably like 4,000 words, and it has to get chopped down to about 3. So I think it ended around 3,000.
Okay. I thought it was a long, comprehensive piece. And PK and I have been doing this radio show for more than 20 years. We've been very fortunate. We've beaten the odds. And we have had people like you writing stories like you on. It is a niche within journalism. Stories that are well-known locally, but are not known at all nationally. So someone locally reads this story. Man, if you've been paying attention, you might know 100% of the info, but you almost certainly know 80 or 90%. But for the people nationally, and they know 10 or 20%. they just don't know that much. And you brought it all together in one place. So I'm curious, had you had a lot of experience covering or writing about teams and issues in this state, or did you come in as a blank slate and have to figure all of this out?
No, I came in as a blank slate. So I'm from Michigan. I live over in New England now. I had not been to Salt Lake City or Utah before. So I was coming in this from I guess first and foremost, from a baseball perspective. I've written extensively about MLB expansion. I've been to Montreal and to Nashville and to Portland and to Orlando and these other cities hoping to get an expansion city. And so when Utah sort of came online and seemed to have such a put together package and what Major League Baseball would be looking for, then I wanted to get on the ground and sort of do a similar story that I'd done the other cities and say, okay, why does this make sense? Why would it not make sense? And then the more I looked at it, the more I said, well, I think from a national perspective, I think a lot of people don't realize all that has been going on in Salt Lake City. People generally think the average sports fan knows it as the Jazz town. They may have heard there's an NHL team there now. They know that Winter Olympics were there once upon a time. They may or may not know they're coming back. But to me, it felt like an opportunity to write a story that was more about the larger sports ecosystem and the way that has evolved in Utah, rather than just focus on MLB expansion. Because to be honest, the interesting part of MLB expansion stories at this stage is like, what more do they have to do to be ready? And does it make sense or does it not make sense? And for Utah, those didn't feel like compelling questions to me. The questions of what do they need to do to be ready, I could answer very quickly. And can it work? Well, it's the same answer as with any of these other cities. There appears to be support. You'd think it would work, and there are some questions, but not so many that I felt like it deserved to be the whole story.
I thought you hit on one thing that Utah is going for it, that Utah has really no control over, but things work out the way they work out. And it turns out I think this is a major advantage for Utah. And you mentioned this partway through the article, is the fact that it won't cannibalize another fan base. A lot of these cities, especially you get in the eastern third half of the U.S., they're so close together that fans in one market are following somewhere else. I lived and worked in Sacramento for a while, and the Bay Area teams don't really want teams in Sacramento because they know people are driving down from Sacramento to the games. And I did it, and tons of my coworkers did it, my friends did it. I mean, you could drive to a Niner game and see all these people in the car, and in Utah, you're not cannibalizing a fan base, and that means money in an owner's pocket. So I think that's one of the best things that Utah is going for it.
Yeah, they're part of this whole conversation is that this all needs to go through the 30 existing MLB owners in the league office, and it needs to be okay with enough of them for it to pass. And so if you look at Portland, it has a lot of things going for it. I've been on the ground. I've heard the vision. I've heard the dream. It makes a lot of sense to me as well. But they're sort of right up next to Seattle's market, and Seattle wouldn't be so excited about that. Atlanta has Nashville close by. If you think about Charlotte, that's not far from Atlanta. So you're right. The closer things are bunched together, the more problematic it becomes, and this does sort of fit one of those geographic gaps.
You did a good job of talking to politicians. You actually started the story with a politician on a chair, which didn't surprise any of us because, Mayor Erin Mendenhall isn't that tall, and she would stand on a chair to get to something up on a map. Wasn't surprising at all, but it was a nice visual to start the story with. The thing that surprises me being here a long time, and having been asked about this a long time, is I always thought we could get an NHL team because arenas are so multi-purpose, and the concert industry is really blown up, making them even more valuable. So that didn't seem like a stretch, but I just thought with the attitude towards taxes and tax cuts here, and the state legislature is very aggressive towards limiting taxes and providing tax cuts. I think they like to say every year that somehow they've reduced taxes. They really like to say that. I never thought that they would pay for a baseball or football stadium, but you talk to a lot of politicians, and not only is it clear they're chipping in for the baseball stadium, you got a quote that makes me think they'll chip in for an NFL team, which, man, 20 years ago, there's no way I would have predicted that the Athletic A would exist and B would have that quote.
Yeah, well, fair on both counts. I don't know how tongue-in-cheek that was said or not.
I don't think it was.
I think they were,
not the way politicians talk here. The way politicians talk here, I don't think that was an accident at all.
I will say the NFL came up in like 3 different conversations.
Really?
So it wasn't just one thing, and none of them were specific plans about it, but it was. I would say as I look toward the future, I was asking, what's the next chapter if you look beyond potential MLB expansion, beyond the Winter Olympics return, was the hope of becoming a rotational, one of these permanent Winter Olympic sites, and then the potential for NFL. We didn't dive deeply into that. It seems like baseball would certainly be the first large hurdle to overcome. And you're right, so much of this is about the politics, right, in any of these cities. But that is actually one spot where Utah, from where I sit and all the conversations I've had, is clearly ahead. You look at what baseball wants, they're providing that as far as a sports and entertainment district around a baseball arena. Public-private partnership is pretty much a must for the league. Portland has that in place, but they don't yet have this anchor investor who would be leading the whole charge, and that's a massive piece of this. You look at Nashville, and they've announced a lot of things. They have a lot of branding going. They have it's a great market. It's the most popular market if you ask fans. We have a fan survey coming out later this week, and to spoil that part, Nashville is number 1 by a long shot. It makes a lot of sense, but they don't have any sort of public-private partnership announced, and that's a real question. Is the state and city government going to get behind this project in a way like Salt Lake City and Utah have? It really is a massive component when you look at who's going to get a team and who won't, because if nostalgia were leading this, Montreal will be having a team. Why has that fallen apart? Because the city and the province do not want to put a bunch of money back into a sporting venue for a team like the Expos to come back. So it's just basically a non-starter at this point.
If you had to rank all the cities in, would you? And it doesn't really matter if you're 1 or 2. If 2 teams get a team, who cares if you're 1 or 2? But in the horse race right now, is Utah number 1?
Well, I think it's going to be 1 East, 1 West. So I think Nashville and Utah are 1 and 2. I'm not sure which So I would say it this way, I guess, and this is mostly speculation, not based off of like what I'm hearing from the league office or anything. But I would say in the East, it's most likely Nashville and then Raleigh. I would say that's where the money is leading things. That's where the opportunity actually is for the league. And in the West, I would say it's Utah and then Salt Lake City and then Portland. But I think the Salt Lake City and Portland are closer than Nashville and Raleigh, if that makes sense.
So is Portland actually going to get a stadium plan together? Because it seems there's a former sports writer, Bill Oram, who used to work here at the Salt Lake Tribune, who's now a columnist at the Oregonian, and we've had him on the show a lot, and we know him from, hanging out at games and standing around waiting for press conferences to start. And we haven't talked to him in a while, but when we've had him on, he's like, the stadium plan, it isn't there yet. They don't have it.
Yeah, it does seem it has changed a lot of times. When I was there, I saw 3 different sites, 2 in the city, one right along the Willamette, and then one in the suburbs closer to the Nike facility. And the area that they've honed in now is one of those spots down on the river, but it's a much smaller developable area for that sort of sports and entertainment district around it. And so I think they would be able to work something out. The problem that they have, I think, to some degree is same as some of these other cities, is like stalled momentum. This conversation has gone on so long that you came out with renderings in 2019 or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no momentum at this point. And so were MLB about to announce in 3 months that they're ready to accept submissions, I think you'd hear a lot more anchor investors being announced. You'd hear a lot more about stadium plans. And while all that's happening, that's what kind of stands out starkly to you as a national, from the national audience, is like Utah is already building on that site. They're pretty much ready to go, building on an area right near downtown, and it's hard to find in other spots.
I have been to Portland multiple times for work, and I have family there, so I've been there for holidays and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. And so I know the area pretty well, and the downtown soccer stadium works great.
Yeah.
And the baseball on the river is brilliant. There, I don't know which side of if it would be on the downtown side or the other side, the Burb side.
It would be on the downtown side.
Okay. And they got light rail. They actually have light rail on both sides of the river. And so I can absolutely see how that works, and that's where it ought to be. I've had to drive out to the suburbs, and I know that's not a great answer. But the money piece of that, I mean, they're writing. Actually, Bill just wrote a story about, hey, the NBA team wants a new arena. Is Oregon/Portland going to get this right, or are they going to lose the team? And so it's like, wow, if you're struggling with financing for a basketball arena, I can't imagine financing a baseball stadium, which would seem to put Utah in even a better spot.
Right, yeah. Like I said, there are so many. Well, Bill, first off, is going to be the authority on this, so I'll defer to him. But there are so many. There need to be so many moments in a process like this when you're balancing multiple teams arriving, teams wanting to move to the suburbs, but you want to keep them downtown. That's what I tried to wrap into this Utah story. Was there are so many moments where having discord between the private owners and the public officials could lead to a really rapid transformation in a bad way for a city or a market, and teams moving either just out to the suburbs and you don't have the downtown experience you want, or not getting an expansion team. A lot of things have to go right, and a lot of things have to often go right very quickly. That's what you saw happen when Ryan Smith brought the Mammoth in. There were other cities that could have gotten it, but they had sort of answers to the things they needed answers to as far as a place for them to be, and then thinking about the future and where they would put the teams next or whatever. They would retrofit the Delta Center to work out as they are doing now. So there are a lot of people who need to get on board with these projects, and I've not been to a place where I think it has such a feeling across party lines to some degree, but certainly throughout different sectors of the state and local leadership, that they are willing to do what it takes to keep teams here and to bring in more teams. And as a taxpayer, you are certainly free to disagree with that. My story wasn't really focused on that angle, but it certainly is worthy. But that's the vision, and that's what places like Salt Lake City are trying to do, whether you are stoked about money headed that direction or not.
From having an owner to the business community to the politicians to the right real estate, I get your point about a lot of things have to line up because I grew up in San Diego. I'm literally wearing a Padre hoodie right now, and I watched the Clippers and the Chargers leave. So I get it. That stuff didn't line up, and now those teams play in L.A., period. There you go. Follow the money.
Yeah, exactly. And I've lived in markets where it feels like so I lived in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh didn't have an NBA team, and it had pro basketball back in the day, and it has college basketball, and it's a great sports market. It's a wonderful place to be. I never sensed, from a legislative perspective, from the city official perspective, that they were going to go all out to find the money somewhere in the budgets or raise funds to add an NBA team, right? And you go to a place like Salt Lake City, and it's like hits you in the face. It's like, oh, this is a place that's willing to go the extra mile to make it very clear that they want to be seen as a big city, seen as a sports city, seen as a really rising market, and they're willing to do what it takes to bring in new teams, even if sports economists out there, including people who retweeted my story yesterday and had thoughts, will tell you every time that this does not make sense for taxpayers to pay for, $900 million here, $900 million there to build sports arenas or build around them. The revenue statement or whatever the cost benefit analysis for a city like Salt Lake City maybe is different. Maybe they're just looking at something a little bit different than exactly what makes dollars and cents. It's something about what they're trying to build in the capital city and in that sports market to draw people in, to bring people back who've been there for skiing. And I think it's a really interesting ecosystem to look at.
In the Texas, Arlington specifically, and in Atlanta, they built 3 stadiums in my lifetime. And they've torn down stuff for economic reasons that could have stood for another 20, 40, 50 years easily. And it could have worked, but it was real estate deals. It always comes down to real estate deals. The Battery.
People don't realize how much it is about that. Yeah. People don't realize how much it is about real estate.
I haven't been to the Battery, but PK, my co-host, is on vacation, has been, and he's like, that was spectacular. I have retweeted, it's buried somewhere in all my tweets, of San Diego before, the ballpark neighborhood before and after. The number of high-rise, it's completely gone from warehouses to high-rises. And so the tax base has changed. Now, I'm not an economist, and they're retweeting your story, so I'll take them at face value. But a big part of redeveloping North Temple here and redeveloping that spot that belonged to Rocky Mountain Power and figuring there could be growth up and down the tracks line, our light rail, that goes into downtown, I'm sure is a big part of this equation. But it's also changing the face of Utah to the entire country. And as someone who grew up in California, trust me, I've heard every possible joke. All my college roommates think that, guys, you're not writing any of these. I've heard them all. Doesn't matter. I'll hear them next time I go too.
Yeah, I've been to the Battery. The vision is very easy for people to port over to their location. So every single expansion city I've been to and group I've talked to that's trying to bring baseball to their city has gone and visited Atlanta. It is a model for everyone in baseball and honestly even outside of baseball to follow. The problem, if you will, is that I went to Turner Field as a kid. I went to Turner Field as a writer. It was right downtown. It's extremely convenient. For what I was trying to do, stay downtown and get to the ballpark. And now you're out in the suburbs. It's a totally different experience. It's going to get a different segment of the population, and some of that is a feature, and some of it I think is a bug. It's a necessity for getting all that space and owning all that land, and a reason that the Braves, one of the really the only team we can see their books, are so profitable is they have that land around them, kind of regardless of what the team's doing. That area is going to do well and bring them a ton of money. So everyone wants to do that. And so, talking to when I go to Portland, I see the vision down on the water, but it's a much smaller area to develop around. Mm-hmm. And so when you go out to suburbs, that's when you see the lights turn on in everyone's heads. Like, ooh, this could. We have 100 acres here. We can have so much. We could build around. It's a real estate thing at that point. And Salt Lake City it is kind of shocking for someone who is out east, who's in such a developed area, to go there and say, whoa, you could have this baseball area, 100 acres, 5 minutes from the airport, 5 minutes from downtown, a couple minutes from the Delta Center. We're going to have another sports and entertainment district. And then you're 25, 30 minutes from skiing. Like, okay, I understand. Like, I understood that they were a front runner, and I'd heard good things. But when you're there, you're like, okay, I do see why this market sort of stands out in a different way. There's a proximity that the league would have to like for teams coming in that, you don't fly into Salt Lake City and then you drive, 30, 45 minutes to the hotel, and it's out in the suburbs, and that's the only time you spend. It really is, all of this is really, really close together in a way that you just don't find across the country.
You told me, Steve, that you heard 3 people mention the NFL. Did you hear anyone talk about moving the Utah State Fair Park?
No, I hadn't heard anything about that. I think I'm not super well versed in this, but so Luz Escamilla,
she represents the West Side. She's a state legislator.
Senator, yeah. She talked a lot about how for a long time as someone living in that area, the conversation around the Fair Park was that it was going away, it was going to be moved somewhere else, and so to her it was a sign of a good sign that when the Power District comes to that area, the plan has been to sort of develop parts of the Fair Park. And from my understanding, as we drove around there, no one was talking about it as something that could go away. So that would be much more a question for a local reporter. But everything I heard was much more about developing the buildings around it, sort of diversifying what that area does, but still featuring that as what it currently is.
So after all your trip out here and learning about the area and being here for the first time and talking to everybody, do you think that the commissioner, and you pointed out a quote we've heard often, he wants to announce expansion before he leaves in 2029. Do you think Utah is going to hear really good news about baseball expansion out of the commissioner's mouth before he leaves, before this decade is up?
my bold prediction. I think so much can change over time. There could be cities that start to really like, let's say Austin all of a sudden starts putting all their chips behind getting a team. Maybe that changes the conversation. Today, though, I don't see another market that has the boxes checked that Salt Lake City does. And going there, spending time there, hearing the vision, seeing the spots, I come away not having a lot of questions about whether baseball could work there. And so I think the league would see that as well. They want a place that doesn't have they want to avoid what has happened in previous expansions where you maybe picked a spot that was booming but didn't end up having the support that you were hoping for in Arizona and Tampa. They need to get this one right, and it does feel like Salt Lake, but I also think Nashville, I also think Portland would be places where you'd have a pretty safe floor of having a team that does well from an attendance standpoint, with probably a smaller stadium than the classic ballparks with 50,000 or something. Small ballpark, I think the TV markets are healthy enough that they go there feeling good about it. So at this point, I think the odds are Salt Lake City, but a lot can change in the coming years when new money is announced, new ballpark plans are announced, and however long this stretch is on.
Well, the Mariners are 1 vote for Utah. We got that, so we got that going for us. We'll see how that plays out. Stephen, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming out here, writing the story, and hopping on the radio with us.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Steve Nesbitt writes for The Athletic. And my question about the State Fair Park was conjecture and hypothetical. I haven't heard anything, but it's just hypothetical. Hypothetic? Made up a new word. Hypothetical. You can see the argument for keeping it there, developing a little bit, and using it as a place to put more events, and especially concerts, and bring more traffic to the neighborhood. And you could also see it, kind of like the prison, which they moved to develop that site. Oh, you could develop that site. So I don't know what they'll do. I'm intrigued. Thanks to Steve for joining us. When we come back, Scott Gerard's going to San Diego. Big game, Utah State at San Diego State. One team projected to already be in the tournament, the other one on the bubble, and the conference title hanging in the balance. Scotty G's next. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
One of Adam Silver's biggest problems is that he is not consistent at all, and he sets all these crazy precedents that he doesn't live up to, or he sets a precedent he could never live up to. He can't sit there and manage Will Hardy's lineup.
If you want to say conduct detrimental to the NBA, that could be every single night in the NBA with what happens with rotations or who's available and who's not available that doesn't apply to the player participation policy. The Jazz can rest Jusuf Nurkic all they want. He's not in the player participation policy, but if suddenly the NBA says, well, that's detrimental to the NBA and we're going to fine you anyways, then this opens a can of worms that you can't enforce every night because you can't fine your teams every single night they step on the court.
Because he doesn't care about policy and never has. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Catch Jake and Ben weekdays from 10 to noon on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 KSL Sports Zone. PK's on vacation right now. Scotty G is packing his bags after his show today and heading to San Diego to call the Utah State-San Diego State game Wednesday night. Scotty G, good morning.
Good morning, DJ. How are you?
Big game.
Yes.
Are we at the point where people care about conference titles anymore? Because Utah State has a one-game lead over San Diego State and New Mexico, but while the Aggies are projected as firmly in the field, I just saw them as a 7 seed this morning in one of the projections. I've also seen New Mexico as the last team in and San Diego State as one of the first 4 out after back-to-back losses to Grand Canyon and Colorado State. So is this about making the NCAA tournament, or is this about winning the Mountain West before it splits into 2 leagues and teams go their own ways?
Well, I think that's a good point. I don't think there's that emphasis, especially on a regular season conference championship like there used to be. I think it's all about how do you play the analytics game? How do you make sure that your resume looks good going into the NCAA tournament so that you don't sweat things out on Selection Sunday. I just don't think the selection committee really cares that much about a regular season title. Obviously, you want to win the conference title because that assures you a spot in the NCAA tournament. But, yeah, you're right. It doesn't feel like it matters as much as it used to.
Why has San Diego State suddenly lost these 2 games? Is there some vulnerability that can be exploited, or this is the kind of stuff that happens, and now Utah State's playing them at the worst time when they're going to be really mad and really focused because they know what's at stake?
The Grand Canyon game was a little bit of a head-scratcher because, honestly, San Diego State doesn't lose at Viejas. I mean, they're just a powerhouse. They're averaging nearly 12,000 fans a game. The Colorado State game, I've been to those weird games where Colorado State just shoots the lights out in Moby Arena, and that's essentially what happened there. But the fact that those are so each one of those on their own you can explain, but the fact that they're back-to-back, that's very un-San Diego State-like. They're still an elite defensive team, but that defense hasn't been clicking as of late. And that's with, Magoon Guath coming back in the lineup, although he only played 5 minutes in that game against Colorado State, but he played in the win against Nevada. He played in the game against Grand Canyon. So defensively, they should be a lot better than where they are right now. And they are getting healthier down the stretch, but still, this isn't Brian Dutcher can't have a fully loaded roster every year. And I think this roster is a little bit down. They're not quite as talented as they once were. NIL and the transfer portal starting to hurt them a bit. So this isn't the powerhouse San Diego State teams that we've seen in the past. But make no mistake, Utah State's walking into a hornet's nest right now with the Aztecs losing 2 in a row and needing to, fight for their lives for NCAA tournament opportunities.
How many games have you called in San Diego, and how many has Utah State won?
Okay, that's a good question. I think I've only called, I want to say maybe 6 games there because there were a couple of years where Utah State didn't make the trip. And then there was a overlap with football that I did a football game and I didn't call that game in San Diego. So I think I've only called 5 or 6, but only 1 win. Utah State's only won at one time there, and that was last year when Tucker Anderson got hot and hit a bunch of threes late, and Utah State overcame, I want to say, like an 18-point deficit, came back and won the game, and in a crazy-like atmosphere. So, yeah, I've only seen 1 win down there, and Utah State's only won 1 game in there since being in the Mountain West.
If I told you Utah State was going to lose this game and then win out, would you still be comfortable they won the regular season title and went to the conference tournament as a 1 seed? Or would you think maybe San Diego State runs the table and they end up sharing it?
Let's see. I've got San Diego State's schedule right in front of me. So after this one, they go at the Pit, then they go to Boise, and then home against UNLV.
You think they're going to lose again?
They're going to lose again.
Yeah.
I think there's a loss in there somewhere. So, yeah, if Utah State loses this game and wins out, I think Utah State has complete control of that regular season championship. Because that means that Utah State will have beaten New Mexico, too.
Anything you saw in the first matchup at the Spectrum that Utah State won that informs you about what has to happen in this game?
Well, you want to hope that you have been the ultimate hype guy all year for Carson Templin. And Carson Templin played probably either his best game in an Aggie uniform or his second best game in an Aggie uniform against San Diego State. Aggies were down 5 with about 10 minutes left, and Carson Templin caught fire, was getting big rebounds, ended up at that point scoring a career-high 18 points. And so if they can bottle that, then I think they've got a great chance. But here's the thing. Magoon Guath did not play. Elsie Harrington did not play for San Diego State. That was as banged up as they'd been all year long. And so now you get what appears to be at this point a fully healthy, or at least as healthy as they've been in a long time, San Diego State team playing at home in desperation. I don't know if there's a lot you can take from that game in Logan and put towards this one. I think you're seeing a much different Aztec team.
Do you think it's ultimately a 2 or 3 bid league? Because I'm looking at the projections here. Utah's actually a 7 seed both at ESPN and CBS Sports. New Mexico is the last team in at ESPN, and they're like the third of the last team in at CBS. I mean, they're clearly right on the line, and San Diego State's out in both of them. It's been a long time since this was a 2-bid league.
I know, and I don't see a path right now where they
conference tournament.
Outside
the conference tournament.
Outside of the conference tournament, I just don't see a path with 3. And there's a lot of people out there that say it could be a 1. No, that's not going to be the case. They'll get 2 in because the Mountain West is traditionally a 2-bid league, or at least
it's a 3-bid league. It's a multi-bid league.
Yes, and so I mean the years of having 5, like we've seen the last couple of years, obviously that's not going to happen. But there's not going to be a 1-bid league from the Mountain West this year. They'll get 2, 3 if they win the conference tournament. But honestly, this is not a good year for the Mountain West Conference. And the problem is the conference from top to bottom is actually better, and that's what's hurt them. They didn't get that early signature non-conference win that everybody else could feed off of and raise each other's numbers off of. So it's just they didn't play the game right. It didn't quite go the way that it normally does for the Mountain West, and they're behind the 8 ball. I actually think the conference is better from top to bottom. It's not as top-heavy as it normally is, but it's just you know how it is. Sometimes you just start cannibalizing each other and bringing everybody back down.
It's not just about getting non-conference games against other tourney teams. You want to do that. Like BYU was able to schedule Clemson, who's now projected as a 10 seed, and BYU was able to win that game. But what San Diego State did to get big games is just play the teams that nobody wanted to play. Mm-hmm. Arizona's completely loaded. Michigan's completely loaded. If they are both 1 seeds, nobody's surprised. Right now, I think they'd be surprised if they weren't both 1 seeds. And San Diego State got bludgeoned in both those games. Now you get the quad 1 game and you get that the whole strength of schedule thing. It's gonna help you out, but it doesn't help you get any quad 1 wins. And I've seen that Ohio State is out because they're 0-9 again, and obviously they get a bunch of Big Ten games against really good teams, but they're like 0-9 in quad 1 games. Oof.
Yeah, no bueno.
Right.
And this is a committee that's very analytic driven. Like there's some committees that are more eyeball test, and then there's some that are kind of a combination of both. This group loves the numbers, and there's always a little bit of turnover. 1 or 2 guys get replaced every year, but it's currently constituted. These athletic directors and coaches out there, they keep a very close eye on the tendencies of these committees. And right now, this is a group that's going to go right to the nitty-gritty net number. They're going to go right to the Ken Palms, and they're going to be like, okay, where are you at right now? That's why Utah State loses at Nevada, but their numbers didn't drop. So they stayed at 23 in Ken Palm. I still think they're 21, 22 in the net, and everybody still has them as a 7 seed. Usually you lose a game against Nevada, who's okay, but they're not great, and you would see a pretty significant drop. Well, Utah State didn't drop. They're still slotted at that 7 spot in Lenardi and all these other guys because they understand that the committee is going to look at that and say, okay, well, your computer numbers are still good. We're going to keep you where you're at.
Utah State is 24 in the net right now.
Okay.
For comparison, BYU is 19. And St. Mary's is 26, so there's another Western team that'll probably be in the tournament.
Yes.
So there you sit. Awesome. You know, when you look at San Diego State and you say the team's not as loaded, have you got any feel for how Mountain West, soon to be Pac-12 teams, are splitting up their money that they can give to players and how they're splitting it between football and men's basketball?
Yes. So right now, men's basketball is getting, if you look at San Diego State, I believe that Utah State spent more money on their basketball roster this last year than they did their football roster. I think that Broncos come in, and I think that's going to be a little bit different next year. It's going to be a lot closer, let's just say that. UNLV, their basketball roster outspent their football roster. New Mexico football or basketball outspent. So the majority of these teams are putting more of their resources into basketball because it's easier to fund a 15-man roster than it is a 85-man roster. And so right now you're looking at a good chunk of these teams saying we can get a bigger bang for our buck on basketball than we can football. Even though football is the front porch of every university. And I think that's kind of the tendency around all of college athletics, actually, is that basketball, the market is just higher right now outside of your quarterbacks and your star players in football. Right now, the basketball market is just hopping in terms of NIL money. And so at that point, you see teams spending more. I think probably even BYU may have spent more on their basketball roster than they did their football roster last year. And I think that trend's going to continue here, at least for the foreseeable future.
So really, college sports is just like the pros because NBA players on the whole make more than NFL players.
Yep.
But it comes down to it's the size of the roster. You can have a lot of money, but once you start splitting it up between 53 guys in the pros and 85 guys in college, well, not like guy 53 or guy 85 is making all that money, but you get the point.
Totally.
You're still spreading it instead of across a 15-man roster.
Yep.
So it's much more lucrative to be a basketball player than a football player.
Parents, teach your kids how to hit a three.
Scotty, there's just so many clever things to say. We'll just let him go. I know.
I try to make things fun for you.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, we'll see if you have fun in San Diego. Big game for a Utah State team that looks like it's on track for about a 7 seed. We'll see how that plays out. You got this one. You got New Mexico at home, so the top 3 teams in the league all still have to play each other.
Yes.
Utah State's going to San Diego State. San State's going to New Mexico, and New Mexico will finish the season in the Spectrum.
As you mentioned wisely yesterday on our Ultimate Aggie podcast that you can find at KSLSports.com, or you can also find on your podcasting platform of choice, just search Ultimate Aggie, everybody on the schedule for Utah State still has teeth. And that is 1,000% correct. There's no Air Force, no San Jose State for the Aggies down the stretch.
Scotty, do you get any beach time in San Diego? How's the weather? I haven't checked.
I have not checked either. I am leaving tonight after the show, so I won't get there until about 7 or 8. And then tomorrow we'll do the show and get all prepped up for the game and then leave at 6 a.m. on Thursday. So no beach.
Yeah, it's all work, nose to the grindstone, no free time whatsoever. That's his story, and he's sticking to it.
1,000%. And for Nate and everybody else listening right now, I won't even think about doing anything fun whatsoever. It's all work, 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 work.
73 degrees Tuesday, 70 degrees Wednesday, 70 in sunshine. There will be some clouds Tuesday.
Oh,
but you'll be getting there dark.
Heaven forbid that we have clouds on a 70-degree day.
I know, right?
We'll find a way to survive.
All right. Thanks, Scotty G. Enjoy the trip. Best. Safe travels.
Will do.
All right. DJ and PK, there's Scott Garrard. He'll be on the air today. Catch him from noon to 3 right here on The Zone. Bob Casper, host of Real Golf Radio, is going to join us at 9 o'clock. They're going to turn the PGA Tour upside down. What are they doing? It's like a metronome. I like it, and it's going to get messed with. In the words of Tiger Woods, a few eggs are going to be broken. We'll get to that with Bob at the top of the hour. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Your Utah Jazz next. Stay with us.
Whirls around and down. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone is your exclusive home of the Utah Jazz. And we want to send you to the Delta Center to see the Jazz in action. Listen every Tuesday for the Jazz Ticket Tuesday Sounder at 30 past the hour, every hour, all day long. And if you're caller number 12, you'll be on your way to an upcoming game.
Buy one, you'll get one free.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, every Tuesday throughout the NBA season on your radio home for the Utah Jazz. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Scotty G Thursday, noon to 3, RGS Exteriors, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. Your Utah Jazz were beaten in Houston as scheduled last night, 125-105. The most disappointing part of the game, I thought, by far, was the injury to Vince Williams Jr. I was intrigued by him, trying to figure out what this roster is going to look like off the conversation with David Locke, and then subsequently he was wondering, and we only had one segment, he was wondering what PK and I were thinking. We were all texting back and forth. And Vince Williams Jr., I just saw as a huge wild card. His size and athleticism is immediately intriguing. What can they get out of him? And we've seen multiple players come to Utah, and this staff figures out how to get a little more out of them. Now, they figured out how to get a little more out of them in a situation where they weren't winning, so maybe they had a little freedom they wouldn't have if the pressure's on to win 50 games or win a playoff series or whatever. But nonetheless, the uptick in the players they've drafted, but they brought in veterans. They brought in a few veterans who have really flourished. Nurkic would be an example, this year. Chris Dunn would be another example, and there are others. And so I was really intrigued, and now that just all goes on hold. Maybe it just stops. I don't know what they do. They've got an option for $2.5 million. If they really like him, they could build some goodwill, pick up the option, and he could get paid while he rehabs. On the other hand, they might need that $2.5 million for a starter. So they might want to pocket that and think, we need that. In which case, well, either way, it's a horrible injury. We haven't heard officially what happened to him, but it was a grotesque hyperextension, and it is very hard to believe he did not tear his ACL. He was in obvious pain. We saw the shot on the Peacock streaming of him being carried off the floor. It was horrible. You had to look away. It was terrible, and it was totally unnecessary. It was a breakaway dunk that there's no reason to veer to your left and throw a shoulder into him. That's a foul. For starters, that didn't get called. And then it's a dunk, and meanwhile you're lying on the ground over there, and you've got a torn ACL probably. Terrible moment, and it doesn't look like anything's going to come of that. So it'll just be interesting to see what the Jazz do with him going forward. He had a chance to be an intriguing piece. Maybe he will be. And maybe in 2028 in the playoffs, this will all be water under the bridge. But that was a bad moment in that game early in the second quarter, and that was really, I think, the most important thing there. Also, earlier in the day, they announced Nurkic is out for the season. He's undergoing nose surgery. He is a free agent this summer. And we got a lot of people posting about this on Facebook and Twitter. You go to David DJ James. You go to our Facebook page, DJ and PK. Ethan, for the right price, he'd be a good backup to Kessler. Shelley, if it is possible, I'd like to see him return. A lot of people have loved Nurkic. He seems to love being here. His teammates like him, and he racked up 3 triple-doubles, 2 of which were more impressive than the third one. Third one he got in garbage time in a blowout. But nonetheless, for a team, I couldn't even name the last 3 triple-doubles. What would it take, like 20 years, Jacques? What do you think, find 3 triple-doubles?
Oh, jeez, yeah. It'd be
right?
Yeah.
It'd be forever.
Well, okay, we had one. Karl Malone there's a long break between Karl Malone having one and then the next one happening, which was almost a 2-decade-plus
run.
So, yeah.
So to find the last 3, you'd have to go back forever, right? And he went out and rattled up 3 in a row, and he likes it here. He's been a bright spot in the 4th year of a rebuild, which is just wearing people out. But he's making $19 million, and people don't usually stay with teams for big pay cuts. If they take big pay cuts, they usually move somewhere else. And I don't see how he's going to get $19 million again. But could he get somewhere between $5 and $10 million? And can the Jazz afford that for a backup center? I think they need 2 perimeter, certainly a guard who has. I think they need 2 perimeter guys who have playoff experience, and one of them has got to be a guard and has got to be capable of running the offense for long stretches. A Mike Conley type acquisition. Now you got to find him at the right price. Easier said than done. If their goal next year is to be in the middle of the league, I think they've already made enough roster moves. I'm pretty confident they can get to the middle of the league. That doesn't seem like a big ask at this point. Easy for me to say sitting here, they got to do the work. But nonetheless, I think they'll get there. But if the goal is to open the championship window, you've got Markkanen signed for 3 years, and you've got Jackson signed with 3 for a player option with the 4th. You've got to target, how do you win playoff series in 27, 28, and 29? I like some of these young guys. I may like them more than other people. But if the goal is to win playoff series in 27, 28, 29, that's a big ask. And I just can't see these young guys being in the top 7 or 8 rotation. Now, maybe they're guy 9, 10, 11. Maybe Collier can be the 4th guard. You've got Ace Bailey, and you've got Keontae, and you've got Collier, and I want to bring in a veteran. Like it matters what I want. But just play along like it matters what I want. I want to bring in a veteran. And so Collier could be the 4th guard playing 10 to 15 minutes a night, more when one of the other 3 misses. I can see that. I think that the squeeze is really on for Filipowski. I don't see how he gets minutes. I don't see how he stays and develops. I expect that when the Jazz go out and acquire 2 or 3 players, that he's in one of the trades to get them. That seems most likely to me. Because they went out and they got Jaren Jackson Jr., who I think is a 4. Maybe they'll ask him to be the backup 5. And if the other team's going small and they're going small, it could work. But I think they probably need a backup 5 that's got some beef. So when they're out there against somebody else whose backup has got some beef, they're not in a mismatch and getting guys in foul trouble. So I expect to add that to the roster. And that Jackson plays most of his time at the 4. Markkanen, I can see playing the rest of the minutes at 4 and some at 3. And you can play Ace Bailey at 3. And then the difference between a 2 and the 3 is pretty much non-existent these days in the NBA. I think they got to find somebody who plays that role. And they got to find a true guard who can handle the ball against pressure in a playoff situation and hit big shots. And they're going to need some guys who've been there because they got so little playoff experience on this roster. Jaren Jackson Jr. The young guys don't have it. Markkanen doesn't have it. Obviously, Keontae George and Ace Bailey, who we expect to be playing big minutes. Walker Kessler expect to be playing big minutes. If they've only got a 3-year window here and they're really going to try to push the envelope, I think they got to bring some vets in. So I don't see how they're going to be able to pay Nurkic to be a backup center. DJ and PK, we're taking a break. When we come back, Tiger Woods has big plans. The PGA Tour is going to look very different. Scarcity, taking weeks off in the middle of the summer, which they're also planning to own. All right, we'll talk about that plan next. Bob Casper joins us. Stay with us. I may have told you a time or two that over the course of my career, I've just seen teams, and I mean both college and professionally, I've seen them just continually pull up the drawbridge, retreat inside the castle, and then holler out, keep throwing bags of money over the moat. Now, oddly, it's working. Bags of money are appearing over the moat. But that retail sales thing, when they really connect, I think that still appeals to a lot of us. I know it does to me. And there's a thing here I've stumbled across on social media. Man, there's a lot of negativity out there. There's a lot of angry, crazy people. But this was pretty cool. There's a soccer team in Spain that instead of walking out with kids, as they usually do, and they hold hands, and the kids get to stand out there for the anthems and the starting lineups, and they run off, and they get to walk on the field. They walked out with people who'd supported the club for 50 years or more. So you got one guy walking out with a cane, a lot of older, balder guys. And then they get to pose for the photo and all that. That's pretty cool. To honor people who supported your team for 50 years, and they're a full stadium. It's a big club. It looks like there's, 40,000 people there or whatever. Pretty cool. Nice job. All right, DJ and PK. Any luck, Yak? Yes. PK's on vacation, but join us right now, Bob Casper from Real Golf Radio. Bob, good morning.
Good morning. I'm better anyway.
Okay. See, he's just going to listen to this, and you're going to have to pay for that later when he comes back. But you don't care. You're going to pay either way.
That's the point. That's the whole point. I need to rile him up to begin with.
Stirring the pot. Nice, Bob. All right, Bob, we need to have you. I'm here. We need to have you on because Tiger Woods he's got a committee, but let's face it, he's Tiger Woods. And he and the committee are going to rethink the PGA Tour model, and he says it may take a couple of years to get to this new model because there are contracts in place, and you have to wait for some of them to be up. But this is radically different. The Western swing that those of us who live in this half of the country know about and love is being dramatically reworked. It looks like they're not going to either of the tournaments in Hawaii anymore. It looks like La Quinta might be gone, and the stops at Torrey Pines and Riviera could be moved to the summer and be part of the playoff. The tournament in Phoenix on the Super Bowl week will be moved to made the season opener the week after the Super Bowl. There's more changes coming, including taking a week off after the major championships. They say they want to own the summer when basketball's done and football hasn't started. Yeah. But they're also going to take weeks off at the same time, which in stories I've read, it's been encouraged by players and media partners. You hear all of this. You're a traditionalist. Your dad was on the tour back when you were driving around in a car as a kid from stop to stop. You love the tour. You hate live. What do you think of all these changes to the tour that you know and love?
Well, it's kind of interesting. The PGA Tour is a niche tour, and it's a niche sport. But you know what? Everybody watches golf. Everybody loves golf that are golfers. So I'm kind of on the fence with both because, one, I want to see the top players playing more, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pare down the PGA Tour so that the top players will play more, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it comes out. But yeah, it's interesting that they will not decide to start the tour until February when the Super Bowl happens. And then, you're going to have a limited West Coast swing, which is my favorite swing of the PGA Tour. I can remember going with my parents to the Sony Open in Hawaii. I can remember driving from Chula Vista, near where we used to live, over the mountain through Hemet and then down into Palm Springs, and go there for the Bob Hope. I can remember going up to Pebble Beach and going to LA and all those events, and they were awesome, and they were great for our family. But it's really difficult to see some of the things that are changing, and change can be really good, and I think that's what they're trying to do with the PGA Tour right now. Is they're trying to maybe develop it more. You got Brian Rolapp who came from professional football, and they feel that they don't want to compete with football in the fall or, right after the beginning of the year with the playoffs and everything like that. But they want to, like you said, take over the summer. And I don't know, it's just going to be changed. But all those big venue courses like Pebble Beach, like Riviera, San Diego is going to be an interesting one as well. Those will be in the schedule in some way. And then, there'll be events in the fall. Once the PGA Tour is shut down, there'll be events in the fall like there are right now, but I think there'll probably be more.
I get they want the bigger name players to play more because celebrity and star power draws. I think that's where golf and the NBA have a lot in common, and the NFL with quarterbacks. So I get that. But the reason guys aren't playing as much is because they're making so much money. When your dad played, a lot of guys played 30-plus events in a year because they had to make the money. Yeah. Now the money is so big, we're seeing guys down to 25 events, down to 20 events. They had to put a rule in it's more than a few years ago, a couple decades ago, like you have to play 15 times to maintain your membership because some guys are making so much money. I just feel like getting rid of these tournaments, they're moving the bags back at first, and to get the membership to sign on, a lot of the middle-class guys are going to get squeezed here. If your guy's 75, guy 100, guy 125 on the tour, you're like, whoa. Where's my chance to play and make money? Because those guys pick their spots and are like, hey, I can make money here. I can make money here. I can make money over there. And those tournaments, you used to call them A, B, and C tournaments. They're getting rid of the C tournaments, and a few of the B tournaments is what it looks like.
Yeah, and the whole thing is see, there's less guys that have their card now. It used to be 125. Now it's 100. Yeah. So, and then, 70 guys are the guys that lock themselves in. 50 guys are the guys that get in the signature events. And then, you get into the Tour Championship and at 30. So you got to get in that top 50 if you want to be secure with playing with the best players in the world like they did the last 2 weeks at Pebble Beach and at Riviera, and playing those signature events. It'll be interesting to see if they stay signature events or if each event.
I think they are by default. They are by default now. They're going to be so few events.
Yeah, but I think the purses are not going to be the $20 million, $22 million events. I think they're going to come down in the purse amounts a little bit more, but there's going to be more of them, and guys are going to. Yeah. Guys are going to want to play all of those because of the points and all that kind of stuff that get players into the fall and getting them into the Tour Championship and the playoffs and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's going to be definitely going to be a change. It's going to rile things up. Guys that are the elite players are going to have all the opportunity in the world, and guys that are outside that elite status and getting into those bigger events, not the majors, but the bigger events on the PGA Tour, they're going to have to play their way in. And the way they play their way in is the Aon top 5, the A or the 10, so the 5 and the 10, and then playing well in major championships. They're gonna have to boost their points, get into major championships. Like this kid last week, Bridgman. He was in both of the last 2 events, but now he's won. Now he's pretty much locked himself in for the majors for this year and all the remainder of the signature events for this year. So it was great to see him win. It was tough to see him come down the stretch and only win by 1 when he had a 6-shot lead.
Okay, but
he said the last few holes he couldn't feel anything.
Yeah, but
it's pretty cool.
He's
pretty
putting.
Cool.
He's putting at 18. The whole world's looking at him. Tiger's up there with his arms folded. Are you going to gag, kid?
Yep.
Are we going to have a 3-player?
Yep.
Are we going to have a 3-way playoff here? And that first putt was so short, but the second one was right in the heart.
3.5 to 4 feet short.
And I was broadcasting. It's inside stuff. But when they're like, He's gone 173 consecutive holes without a 3-putt. And the other broadcasters, oh, now you've done it. Now you've jinxed him. And I haven't called golf, but it's the same thing as he's made 27 free throws in a row. Clank.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
He hasn't missed a field goal inside 40 yards.
And then they doubled down. Yeah. Well, it's now 174 holes, and he made another, tricky second putt. But nobody had the spine or the to say anything on the 18th hole with a playoff hanging in the balance. I wanted to hear 175 holes in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he's good. He's only been on the tour now for 2 years. He played well enough last year to get himself into the Tour Championship by virtue of that. He gets to play all the signature events this year. So, the great thing about golf is it's on the PGA Tour, it's a pure meritocracy. If you get onto the Korn Ferry Tour, guess what? You play well enough, you get yourself to the PGA Tour. Then, if you play well enough on the PGA Tour, then you get to start taking advantages of the perks, being able to play in major championships, getting high enough on the world ranking points, and being able to play all the signature events. And it's you get out of what you put into the game and how you play the game, you get benefits. And it always, the saying is, if you want to get into signature events, if you want to get into majors, if you want to get onto the PGA Tour, you got to play better. And if you play better, then you become a guy like Scotty Scheffler, who in the last 4.5 years has won 20 times and won 4 major championships. And he came off the ranks through the Korn Ferry Tour and from college. And he's been able to he's the number 1 player in the world right now. And his point differential between himself and Rory McIlroy is the same point differential that basically Rory McIlroy to Bob Casper. Bob Casper has 0 points in world golf rankings, and Scotty Scheffler has that big of a lead. So those are the things that matter in the game is you go out, you put in the work, you dig it out of the dirt, and you become better each week as you get experience and you have an opportunity to win, and hopefully you win like Bridgman did last week and are able to get yourself into that elite category on the PGA Tour.
For the golfers who are on the tour now who feel like they're going to get squeezed, do you think this initial trial balloon here that Tiger and the committee have left themselves a little wiggle room for negotiation? He's saying, we'll start after the Super Bowl in Phoenix. But, if you need to add 2 more tournaments to get a few more players on board, it's not hard to move Phoenix back to Super Bowl weekend where it's been a major success and put something else the week after the Super Bowl. And maybe you go to La Quinta and where it's basically an LA tournament. I mean, they say they want to play in major markets. That's basically an LA tournament.
Yep.
And you open the season in the desert where the weather is reliable, and you've got the LA market, and that's how you start every year before you go to Phoenix. And you know when the Super Bowl moves through Vegas, Phoenix, and LA, which it's going to do because of their dome stadiums, you're right in the proximity right there with back-to-back tournaments.
Yeah, and like you said, they're thinking about that. There's a week off always between the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and they're thinking about starting that during that week off. At least that's what they're starting to say also. Yeah. And then make Phoenix always the week of the Super Bowl championship.
It thrives.
That kind of leads into the Super Bowl. So, and then from then on, it's a matter of how many events you're going to play on the West Coast. It's hard to see the full West Coast go away, but like you said, I think Hawaii's going to be out. They're going to have the Tournament of Champions someplace else. They're talking about bringing one of the playoff events to Riviera or possibly to Pebble Beach.
I saw Torrey Pines mentioned too. Yeah.
Pardon?
I saw Torrey Pines mentioned because they don't think they can get to Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach is making too much money in the summer.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Pebble will. I mean, it's a week, and Pebble will do something. But yeah, Torrey Pines they just re-upped. Farmer just re-upped for their contract. So Torrey Pines is going to be in the mix
somehow. Yeah.
So but as it goes along, week after week after week, it's just the schedule is going to get different. It's going to change. It's going to. This week is the Cognizant Classic, and it's not a signature event. But still, they're playing for $9 million, and signature events they're playing for 20. So the Bridgman, I keep going back to him, but he made $4 million last week by winning. So and the major championships are going to keep getting bigger. Golf is a game where things have evolved, and I'll tell you what, man, guys are making bank right now. They're making the bag.
And
on
that's
the PGA
why they're
Tour.
playing less. And so all this other stuff isn't addressing it. Now, a couple ideas I got to brainstorm here at the end. And just your immediate reaction, either you personally or how you think the tour will react to this. But your personal reaction, they're going to take a week off after the majors. The players are emotionally gassed. They don't want to go. I don't like it, but I get it. And the media partners see the ratings and see the performances, and I get it, right? So who fills that gap? LPGA, major, senior major, or LIV goes to places that have been abandoned by the PGA Tour and tries to pounce on those weekends? We're going to be watching golf. What are we going to be watching?
Yeah, and that's the thing that's where I have a problem with them paring down the schedule to only having 20 to 24 events a year, where they're normally used to having 38. They're still going to have the fall events, and you're still going to see the fall stuff after the Tour Championship. But what they're doing is they're leaving an opening. Yeah. In the schedule. They're leaving an opening for people wanting to watch golf, and you can watch golf, because the LIV Tour is going to have a tournament that week, and I don't understand how you give a competitor.
Why do you give a foothold?
A foothold or a way in to the viewership of golfers, and so something needs to be figured out with that so that doesn't happen. So maybe you do not relegation events, but you do those B and C tier events like you're doing, like Cognizant or like the fall series events. Maybe you have those to cover at the end of a major championship or on the back end of a major championship. I don't know. It's really, really interesting with the committee that Tiger heads up, as far as the competition is concerned, how that's all going to work out.
golf ran away from the NFL wisely when they reorganized the tour about 20 years ago, and they put 2 tournaments in Hawaii head-to-head with the NFL playoffs because with the time zones, they could do primetime golf after the football was done. But football has now morphed into, well, there's just primetime football every Sunday, so you have to compete with it. So I get how the Hawaii events have been squeezed. I do wonder if they ever reimagine the Corn Ferry Tour at the same time, how much because they need to create personalities coming off the Corn Ferry Tour, and they need to create moments. So what if there were, I don't know, is it top 15 get their cards?
Top 20.
Top 20. So what if they move that to 18 and they hold the 2 Hawaii tournaments, and whoever wins those tournaments in Hawaii is on the tour? Well, you still have an event there. And honestly, that kind of drama, watching people try to make putts for a tour card, win a tournament and get on the tour, and you punch your ticket, and it starts next week, and you're teasing it. You got to build in some drama here.
Well, and I think they do currently, because it all comes down to the Tour Championship and everything for the Corn Ferry Tour at the end of the year, and those guys that are playing for a card eventually gets to it. It doesn't happen at the beginning of the year, but maybe they could put it at the beginning of the year as far as the Tour Championship is concerned, to have those guys be able to get, jump to the PGA Tour in the same season, starting in January.
18 guys punched their 18 guys punched their ticket at the Tour Championship, but everybody else, they do this in other sports. There's a last chance tournament to qualify for Olympic basketball. It's like a last, and you got to fly out to Maui or Oahu or both. And then 2 guys are going to punch their tickets, and the pressure's on. Come on, that it may be a little artificial drama, but we're going to watch that.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool leading into
the tour.
That schedule towards the end of the year. The other thing you got to remember is there's 10 guys that come off of the DP World Tour as well that aren't normally qualified. There's 10 guys that come off of that, and case in point about meritocracy. Patrick Reed decides he's not going to play at Live Golf anymore. He wins 2 out of 3 times in the first 3 events on the DP World Tour, and he's pretty well insured himself his PGA Tour card starting in 2027, and he gets to take advantage of some of it at the end of 2026 this year in the fall. So there's another guy that will be able to come off through the DP World Tour. There's another channel to get onto the PGA Tour. So not only do you have the top 100 from the PGA Tour, but you've got 20 guys coming off the Corn Ferry Tour and 10 guys coming off the DP World Tour. So now you got 130 guys that are trying to work their way through the system to get up into the position where they can get into those elite events and be in the top 50 or the top 70, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough to keep your card when you don't have a lot of opportunities to play.
They talk about wanting to play more in the top 30 markets in the country. They don't go to Seattle and Portland, markets 13 and 23. What about rotating a playoff event through Chambers Bay or Bandon Dunes, which is 4 hours from Portland? Nike's up there. I think you could get a sponsor quickly enough. Oh, yeah. And in the summer, you can play so late. I mean, the sun sets after 9 o'clock up there. You could be playing until 10 or 10:30 in the Eastern time zone, or 11 o'clock easily. So create a primetime playoff event up there, which is probably why they're going back to California. But the sun's up even later in the Northwest.
You're exactly right, and there'll be new areas of the country in those top markets that will see PGA Tour events, which I think is really, really cool. For so many years on the PGA Tour, we've had these particular tournaments that are set in stone, and the contracts keep getting done and extending and that kind of thing. But there's been a lot of areas of the country that we haven't seen events in. And so, I think the Pacific Northwest will be something that they'll be pushing towards. I can remember my dad, we were talking about this on the show this last week. My dad won a tournament at Portland Golf Club. And he beat Lee Trevino. Alcan, the aluminum company, was the company that sponsored the event. It was the most my dad ever won on the PGA Tour, which was $40,000 for a first place check. He beat Lee Trevino. Lee Trevino was leading by 3 shots with 3 holes to play, and my dad finished birdie, 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 and Trevino finished bogey, triple bogey, bogey. To lose the golf tournament to my dad. But Portland Golf Club is a great golf course. Things would have to be done to that golf course to make it for today's standard of play on the PGA Tour with, the long hitters and stuff like that. They might have to extend it out a little bit. But those areas, Sahali's another one where they've had a PGA championship. So those areas, those courses in those areas would be great to be able to see again, because it's an area of the country that we haven't seen a lot of as far as professional golf is concerned.
Bob, appreciate it as always. We will talk to you when the Masters rolls around, and we're really not that far away, are we? A little more than a month.
No, we aren't. Hey, I got a stat for you.
Talk to me.
Scotty Scheffler.
Yep.
Finished outside the top 10 last week, so he had 18 in a row. Okay? My dad, prior to Scotty Scheffler, he tied my dad at Pebble Beach with 17 in a row, and my dad in 64 and 65 had 17 in a row, and Scotty tied him or beat him at Pebble Beach. Up until that point, they were tied. So 17 in a row top 10s for my dad, 18 in a row top 10s for Scotty Scheffler. So Dad keeps showing up every once in a while.
See, the name's still out there. Bob,
there it is.
Bob, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again when we get close to the Masters.
You got it.
All right, DJ.
Okay, take care.
Yep, DJ and PK, when we come back, everything you missed in this show, we will get to it next, and we'll give away Jazz tickets. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
Whirls around and down. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone is your exclusive home of the Utah Jazz. And we want to send you to the Delta Center to see the Jazz in action. Listen every Tuesday for the Jazz Ticket Tuesday Sounder at 30 past the hour, every hour, all day long. And if you're caller number 12, you'll be on your way to an upcoming game.
Buy one, you'll get one free.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, every Tuesday throughout the NBA season on your radio home for the Utah Jazz. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Utah Jazz Ticket Tuesday. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE will win a pair of tickets to watch the Jazz and the Pelicans Saturday night at the Delta Center. Call right now, 801-575-ZONE. Win a pair of tickets. It is time to get you up to speed on everything you missed in this show. The Slacker Radio headlines are brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 801-210-6800 or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. You just heard the Jazz update. That pretty much covers it. I mean, that just looked like a dirty play. That was just unnecessary contact for contact's sake, and run over and blow up a guy who honestly is in a terrible defensive position, caught out of position because of the turnover at the top of the key. What are you doing? I was really intrigued to see if Vince Williams Jr. could evolve into something for the Jazz, grow into something. They've brought in other players who've been in the league and gotten more out of them. I mean, obviously they've developed some of these young draft picks, but Chris Dunn came through. They got more out of him. Nurkic this year came through. They get more out of him than Phoenix got out of him. So how could they use him? What could he do? We had a conversation with David Locke earlier that got me thinking about what's the roster going to look like next year. And the first thing you have to do is say, what is the goal? If the goal is to get from the bottom of the league to the middle of the league and qualify the playoffs, I think the Jazz can do that. I think they can get to 7th or 8th in the West. And I think they can win 45 to 50 games. I don't think there's no doubt in my mind. And they can let these young guys continue to grow and develop. However, whereas, if the goal is to open the championship window, and you look at the contracts, and money drives all of this, Markkanen is signed for 3 years. Jackson signed for 3 years and has a player option for a 4th year. So the Jazz have a window 27, 28, 29. If they want to win 2 or 3 or 4 playoff series, right? If they want to be in a conference final or advance past that and maybe win it all, the young guys are going to need more time. Like, if they're going to speed this up and force feed it, that's a big ask. And I just don't see that. I don't see how these young guys can be expected to do that. I think already by acquiring Jackson with Markin on the roster, it's not hard for me to see Filipowski in a deal. I think they've got to bring in 3 guys if they want to get to the top instead of the middle of the league. If they want to get to the top third or top quarter, hey, don't be team 15, 14, 13. How are you team 10, 9, 8, 7? How do you get better than that, right? Well, you're going to have veterans with playoff experience. The only guy on this team with playoff experience, Jaren Jackson Jr., is the only guy we can look at right now and say, you're going to be on the roster next year and you're going to have playoff experience. You've been in the postseason. Markkanen hasn't been there. Obviously, Ace Bailey hasn't been there. Obviously, Keontae, and assuming Kessler is back as a starting center, I think they need a backup center, but I think more importantly, they're going to need a starting guard. And then someone who can swing, a wing player who can swing between those positions, maybe a starter, but maybe someone comes off the bench and plays 25 minutes. It depends on how much they think Ace Bailey can play and how much they want him to play. And I think Markkanen's the backup 4. And so there's going to be a lot of minutes available at 3. So bringing Nurkic back, I don't see it. And the guy's making $19 million. He could take a big pay cut. He could be making $10 million. Maybe he's only making $5 million next year. But do I think he's going to sign for the minimum? I think that's all the money the Jazz are going to have. They re-up Kessler, and then I think if they want to go for it, and I suspect that's what they'll decide, although I don't know that, and they don't really have to decide that yet. They got time to figure that out. They're going to have to add at least 1 and probably 2 players to the perimeter there. And sign Kessler? There's no money for Nurkic. So I think we've seen the last of him. It was a good year for him. I think he reminded the league he's got some value. What did he bring Jazz fans? We'll get into this in the next segment. What's his legacy if he has played his last game for the Jazz, which I expect he has. And we'll get into all of that coming up. But for those of you who want to see him back, I just don't see how it works. They've got to re-sign Kessler, and if they're really going to speed this thing up, they need to bring in 1 or 2 veterans to play those perimeter positions. So I don't think there's going to be any money left for Nurkic, and I think he can get 6 or 8 or whatever somewhere else. We'll have to see what the market is and see who's got space after whatever draft day trades happen and all that kind of stuff. Other stuff that we have talked about here today, in addition to the Jazz losing to Houston, they're coming home now to play New Orleans twice. This is a big deal. New Orleans is on 16 wins. If the Jazz could somehow lose both these games, I don't think they will. My guess is they'll split them. But if they somehow could lose both these games, they'd both be on 18 wins. New Orleans has already traded their draft pick away. New Orleans, there is a good chance that New Orleans passes the Jazz. I don't see how the Jazz win both games. If they win the first one, I cannot imagine that they will run a lineup out there that would give them a chance to win the second one. So, in my mind, the Jazz are either going to split or lose both of these. And if they can lose both, then both teams are on 18. And I was told way back early in the season when the Jazz are rolling, they're going to have one of the 5 worst records. Remember 5th, 5. Because if they're at 5, there's a 100% chance they keep the pick. And they're not going to mess around with a 96.3% chance or whatever it is of keeping the pick. Now, I was told that a long time ago by somebody I think knows what they're talking about. And if Jazz lose these 2 games to the Pelicans, be right on track. We already have a winner for the tickets, Jock? Yep, we already got a winner. If you want to win tickets to see the Jazz, 10:30, 11:30 with Jake and Ben. All day long, every hour on the half hour. College basketball tonight. Big game for BYU. They are 8-6 in the Big 12. So is UCF. UCF and BYU both projected as NCAA tournament teams. The latest brackets, I looked at ESPN and CBS, and BYU is 6 in both of them. Utah State is 7 in both of them. And we had Scotty G on, and you can listen to that wherever you get your podcast. He talked about the game with San Diego State. It was currently on the bubble, but it looks like they're on the outside of the bubble looking in after back-to-back losses to Colorado State and Grand Canyon. So, opportunity for Utah State. Put away another good quad 1 win. Can they get it on the road in a place they've only run once? That game's on Wednesday. The game to focus on tonight is BYU and UCF, who are both 8-6, and they are both in the NCAA tournament field according to the projections now. UCF is close enough to the line, projected as a 9 seed now. by CBS, they could play their way out. So a chance for them to get a road win at BYU, that'd be a big, big deal. That would be very big for their tournament resume if they can come in and win. The question for BYU, after an outstanding effort against Iowa State, can you do it again? Consistency. They played much closer to their potential against Iowa State than we've seen from them in a long time. And they'd won some games, but beating Colorado in overtime, that was not pretty. That was not. The Baylor win was not pretty. The Iowa State win, and thought that was very satisfying. Okay, now do it again. But that required an awesome effort from DeBonsa. If he can't do that again, who can pick it up? Now, maybe Robert Wright III, who had an off game. Maybe he'll be back up. UCF, they're good. I'm looking at ESPN right now. They're projected as a 10 seed there. So they are certainly not locked in. They're in a pretty good spot, not locked in. This would be a big game for them. It's late tonight, 9 o'clock ESPN2. UCF fans are supposed to stay up till 11 for the tip-off on a weeknight. Awesome. Spectacular. But they're programming games for the West Coast, and it'll be at 8 o'clock in L.A. and San Francisco and Seattle. So there you go. 9 o'clock here, ESPN2. Iowa State's at Utah tonight. Obviously, fourth-ranked Iowa State should bounce back and win. The only caveat I throw in this is the Utes are playing better, and Iowa State's 3-4 on the road. Now, I expect Iowa State will get back to forcing turnovers and playing with a ton of energy, and they'll be out on the break, and there'll be layups and dunks, and they'll win. But for an Iowa State team that's 3-4 on the road, I guess they better not take anything for granted on the road. The Big 12 score last night, Kansas beat Houston. Houston's lost 3 in a row. I mean, they've only got 5 losses on the season. But their seeding's going to take a hit. Are they a 2 seed or are they a 3 seed? They dream to be in 1. They just don't score. They cannot score the basketball. 56 points in that loss. They've lost 3 in a row, and the average score is like 71-63. 63 is just not a winning number in college basketball. You look at the winning scores now, they're routinely in the 70s. Lots of them are in the 80s. 63, not going to get it done very often, even for a team that is as good defensively and as good on the backboards as Houston is. NFL news, because we always need/want football news. The Cowboys plan to franchise tag George Pickens. He'll probably make around $28 million. And the Atlanta Falcons plan to franchise tag tight end Kyle Pitts. He'll probably make around $16 million. And Nick Sirianni thinks A.J. Brown will stay in Philly, although nothing's for sure. Brown's really not thrilled with how he's used there, the way the passing game is going. Their expectations are Super Bowl or bust, and anything that derails them from that gets people cranky. Also, watching people run the ball on the way to the Super Bowl will get receivers cranky. So, there's that. And a college football news, Army's coach suggests moving the Army-Navy game to Thanksgiving weekend. If they keep playing in the same weekend as college football playoff, how could they be in the playoff? I think they all dream of winning their league and getting that bid. So, seems like Army-Navy's going to move. And I really don't know why they would bring it up other than they know it has to happen, and it looks better if it's their idea. So, Army coach is throwing it out there. Expect Army-Navy to move to Thanksgiving weekend with a bunch of other games. There you go. That's what we've been talking about this morning. DJ and PK. When we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us. We'll wrap up the show with your take on Nurkic, his legacy, and, where they go from here. That's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it is time for your feedback. What have you got to say about today's show? The Jazz shut down Jusuf Nurkic for the season with no surgery. What's his Jazz legacy? Josh, I hope he stays with the Jazz somehow for the years to come. We do fall in love with players here, don't we? I mean, we really do. But I guess that's one of the fun things of sports, so why not? Nick, such an enjoyable player to watch in a Jazz uniform. I think Jazz Time Jones is the one who got it right. This is his legacy, the triple-double king. When you've had like 3 triple-doubles in 20-whatever years, and then you get 3 in 3 games in a row, that's what we're going to remember. We boil everything down, and we'll remember he liked it here and his teammates liked him. And there you go. But I hope he stays with the Jazz somehow for the years to come. He's an older player who's had multiple injuries that have robbed him of his whatever athleticism he had. I think shoulder and leg. He's been through a lot of rehab just to get to this point. He'll probably go somewhere else and make some more money next year. And if the Jazz bring him back, it'll be on the minimum, and that's a pretty big pay cut for $19 million. But as I talked about in the last segment, they got other places they need to spend their money. Whoa, here's one that aged super poorly. Bad takes. Yikes. Jim, they're still going to dominate tonight with Lowry going off. Watch. Well, they did and they didn't. It was actually over with about 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. The Rockets were pulling away over the horizon. Well, you got to believe, I suppose. So, go get them. Dustin thinks Jusuf Nurkic is one of the top 3 centers of all time for the 2025-2026 Jazz team. Is this where I'm supposed to say your wife thinks you're funny? Yeah, I think this is the right place for that line. So there you go. All right, there's your feedback. Coming up tonight, a big game, BYU, UCF, 9 o'clock, ESPN2. Get an app. Stay up late. We'll be talking about it tomorrow morning. Jazz are off tonight. Mammoth are off tonight. Mammoth are back at it tomorrow. And then the Jazz have the Pelicans on Thursday. The Delta Center will become a busy place again. So BYU tonight, Utah State at San Diego State tomorrow night. Wherever you get your podcasts, listen to Scotty G. He came on, talked about that. And we've got the Ultimate Aggie podcast for you Aggies. So find that on YouTube or KSLSports.com or wherever you get your podcasts or YouTube. There you go. All right, DJ and PK, we are out of time. Jake and Ben are up next. They've got Jazz tickets. They're giving them away at 10:30 and at 11:30. It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday. You can win tickets to see the Pelicans Saturday night all day long, every hour on the half hour right here on The Zone.